Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and it is time, finally, for Why Humans Make Bad Familiars, book number 2. If you're new to the series, there is a link to the original book with all the chapters, but if you're excited for this like me, then let us continue. Book 2, Chapter 1. Jake's Point of View. 2 days after Suma and I had left camp, and she was on her way to meet the Drakes in the fortified city of Antonella, I laid in bed waiting to fall asleep. I thought about how the test ended, still guilt-ridden over accidentally hurting those Niema. Slowly, my eyes grew heavy as I fell into a deep sleep. I'd hoped I would dream of how things were before I disappeared the day of the test, before I ever met Suma so many years ago, or even of just relaxing in Suma's world. I wanted to take my mind off of everything, to escape. But instead, there was only darkness. Darkness and him. "Hello, Sentinel," the kinder half that his figure said, the reptilian man made of fire that I had met almost a year ago. "You're getting stronger." "Who are you?" I asked, while I hung in that darkness, that bottomless nothingness he always appeared to me in. "You said last time that you were my friend. And my doom." "Yes!" he yelled, and more reptilian sight started to take over. "Doom, doom, to all of Atmosia!" "Why? What did they do to you?" I asked. "Not them, the dragons, the traitors!" "I don't understand." "Then allow me to show you." Images began to flash in my mind. Places, events, things I've never done, seen, or known. They were fragmented, twisted, even overlapping with one another, like I was seeing 2 sets of events that happened at the same time, from 2 angles, 2 points of view. There were emotions tied to the memories, love, protection, fear, betrayal, grief, pride, and more. It was too much, too overwhelming. I couldn't take it. "Ah!" I cried out as the images burned themselves into my head. "Enough for now," the kinder, more human side said. "Jake! Jake!" Another, more distant voice called out. "The master calls, its pet. I'll leave you to absorb and learn and grow for now, but we will meet again." With that, I woke up in bed, drenched in sweat, and Suma yelling in my ear, "Jake! Jake, are you there?" "Yeah, I'm here." I rubbed my temples to try and get rid of the throbbing pain in them. "Thank goodness. I've been trying to summon you for 5 minutes now, but couldn't even contact you. It felt like you didn't exist," she said, worried. "What happened? Where have you been?" "I don't know how to explain it." I swung my feet over the side of the bed and took a drink of the water bottle I had in my nightstand. "Are you okay?" "Yeah. Just give me a minute to get dressed before you summon me," I said, putting the bottle down and rubbing my temples again. "Okay, Jake. Just let me know when you're ready," Sua said, still sounding concerned. I stood up and went to the bathroom and rubbed a washcloth on my face. I bent down to put my face over the sink and started washing it, massaging my eyes and enjoying the feeling of the cool water on my mouth and eyes. I put the washcloth down and opened my eyes, then jumped back and fell over. It wasn't my face in the mirror. It was the figure of flame. I scrabbled on the floor for a second as my flight and flight response figured out what to do. Eventually, I slowly stood up and peeked over the sink into the mirror again. My face was back, and the figure was gone. "Okay, that's not right, even for my life," I told my reflection. "Another thing to talk to Suma about, I guess." I walked out of the bathroom and got dressed, then told Suma I was ready. I was nervous, thinking I would see a figure again after being summoned, but I didn't. Instead, it was normal. I disappeared and watched the world turn black, then suddenly reappeared on Suma's world, Atmosia. "Jake, are you okay? You didn't answer for a long time, and I couldn't summon you," Suma said, repeating herself from earlier. "I don't know. I saw that flaming guy again, once in my dreams, and once when I looked in the mirror." "Did he hurt you?" Suma asked. "No. He just spoke to me, and no, actually, he did hurt me. He showed me something, but I couldn't make sense of what it was. It seemed like memories, but they were distorted and fragmented. It burned." "I'm so sorry, Jake. Do you need healing?" she offered. "No, I'm okay now, Suma. We need to find out what that thing is." "We will.
Maybe someone on our new team or in Antonella will know,
she suggested. Right, I exclaimed, and started to look around. We were in a city. From my point of view, it seemed as large as the one we were in last, but I really couldn't tell. Is this it? I asked.
Yes, Jake. Welcome to Antonella, the Shield City.
Shield City? Why is it called that?
This is the main point of defense between the rest of Sangu Dragon, our continent, and the Southern Union forces of the island of Sangu, remember?
I thought your country was called Ambos.
It is, but there are 3 other nations on our continent.
Oh, right. So, where are we supposed to go now? I wondered.
The base we were ordered to report to is north of here. It is not too far. I thought that we should arrive together,
Suma said and landed on my shoulder. Jericho, my armor, wasn't on at the moment, so she just clung to my shirt. When we arrived at the base, I knew it wasn't like our training camp at all. There was a huge stone wall surrounding the entire camp, with familiars of all kind perched along the walls like mounted turrets or gargoyles, and Niema flying around in the sky higher than I've ever seen a Niema fly. In fact, I didn't even know what they were. Suma had to tell me. All I could make out was the small dark spots in the orange sky.
This is quite different than I was expecting,
Suma said. Really? Is it a military base after all? I said, looking around. Hold! A voice called out. A Niema flew down in front of us, then summoned his familiar. While still in the air and landed on it. Who are you? She asked.
I am Suma, and this is my familiar Sentinel. We are reporting for duty with the Drakes, ma'am.
Suma said. Show me your official documents, the Niema demanded. I pulled a small wooden plank out of my bag. I had been holding on to them since it was easier for me to carry it. She used mana wrapping to take the plank from us and examine it. All right then, proceed to the main office for your orders and accommodations. She floated the plank back to me and I put it away. As we were walking away, I heard her say something. So that's a Viking. As we walked to the office as instructed, we passed several buildings made of vines, stone, and some that seemed to be built directly into the surrounding landscapes, trees, and hills. We also passed several Niema in a group. They were perched on sculpted vines that formed a circle around 2 of them. The one in the center of the circle were surrounding themselves with some kind of magic fog. It looked similar to the fog I made when that Virem attacked me. Suma, what's that? I asked, and pointed at the group.
Oh, that is a game. And a rather tasteless one, she said.
What do you mean?
They are creating displays. It is a way of flaunting your magical prowess. Whomever can create a larger display wins, and the winner goes up against the next opponent. It gives progressively harder to maintain your display with time, so people with large mana capacities and good control will last longer, she explained.
What's it called?
I do not know the proper name. I've heard it called many things. Mana circle, power player, display dominant, and a few other ruder versions.
After watching them for a bit, we left and found the main office. End of chapter. Chapter 2. Jake's point of view. The main office was huge, as a large royal citadel or a grand sanctum back in Suma City. Zach Ashram. It was shaped different, but it has similar features, like the halls that the Niema would fly through, large spires, and guards surrounding it. Its differences, however, were what told the real story of this place's purpose. It was surrounded by walls, patrolled by Niema and their familiars. On top of the spires were carvings and runes. I didn't know what they did, but probably something bad. Just like when we tried to enter the citadel, we were stopped and questioned, but this time they also demanded to see our tablets. I showed them, and we were let through. Suma, do all of your world cities have citadels like this? I wondered as we walked in.
Only the largest ones. Most make do with lesser sanctums or royal embassies. Small towns and villages are lucky to even have temples.
From the names, I figured those were just smaller versions of what I had already seen, so I didn't ask any more about it. Instead, I wondered about something more relevant. Do you know what we are supposed to do exactly? I can't read the tablet thing, so...
All it said was that we should present ourselves for inspection and assignment. Beyond that, I do not know.
I hope it's not anything weird or too formal. I don't even own a suit, I joked.
A suit?
Suma asked. It's like actually, never mind. Don't worry about it. It's not important. We finally arrived at what was effectively the main desk and asked for directions. The Niema showed us some markings on our tablet and told us that the room that we were to go to would have those same markings. Then the Niema pointed us in the right direction.
I'll fly ahead and try to find it, Jake.
Suma said, and spread her wings. I don't think that's a good idea, I said, stopping her, with remembering what happened last time she left me alone in a place like this.
Why not?
She asked. Let's just say I don't want a repeat of last time.
Last time?
I'll tell you about it later. Let's just stay together for now, okay?
Well, all right,
she said, settling back onto my shoulder. It took a while, but eventually we did find the room with matching numbers. Like all rooms here, it was made of stone and wood, with sculpted vines acting as a door. The markings were engraved into the stone part of the hallway. We entered and saw an empty room.
I suppose that we're the first ones to arrive,
Suma said, and made herself a perch, then softly landed on it. I guess so. I looked around. The floor was stone, and so were 2 of the 4 walls. The 2 on the east and west halves of the room. The north and south halves were walls made of wood, and so was the ceiling. The room itself was basically just a large square with vines strewn along the floor randomly. I took a cue from Suma and molded some of them into a seat and sat down. A while passed before another Niema finally showed up and made himself a perch.
Hello,
Suma said. Greetings. Is this the correct room for meeting the Drake Brigade? He asked.
Yes, at least I believe it is,
Suma said. Are we supposed to have our familiars summoned? I wasn't made aware of any such rule.
No, this is Jake. He's my friend.
Hey, nice to meet you, I said. He seemed surprised. His feathers raised for a moment and his body pulled back. No, you did not, he started. You didn't know I could speak. Yeah, I get that a lot, I laughed. It was actually starting to get kind of funny. Over the next hour, 2 more Niema showed up. Of the 3 others, 2 of them had names when they arrived. The other was designated 9 on his official summons. Apparently, that meant that there were already 8 other nameless Niema on our team. The 2 others were called Odin's and Ro. Odin's was the tallest Niema in the room, standing at about 4 inches higher than Suma, and his feathers were a very light blue, with hints of darker reds and browns and the tips of his wings. He had no gold or jewels, but that might have been because some kind of military rule. Ro was almost the same height as Suma, but she seemed leaner. Her beak was less rounded, and her wings came to a sharper point at the ends. There were touches of white around the head's feathers, and sparkles less brightly than the others, with the sole exception of 9. 9 was darker in color than the others by a lot. His color was more of a royal blue, and he lacked the sparkle that every other Niema had seen so far possessed. 9 was also the shortest in the room by about an inch, and had rounder wingtips. We made introductions, and that got shocked that I could talk. And then finally, our handler arrived, Lieutenant Datahu. She was completely different from the others, for starters. She was white, not blue, and unlike the nuns I'd met in the temple, she didn't even have a tinge of blue in her feathers. Instead, she was white with a light grey tipped feathers on her wings, and dark grey tips on her head. She was about 2 inches taller than Suma, but something about her exaggerated that. She had 2 golden squares on her chest, which I think meant that she was a lieutenant. Maybe. I'm still not 100% sure how their military symbols reflect their ranks. With her, she carried several gold objects suspended with mana wrapping. Hello, everyone, she announced as she landed. I am 2nd Lieutenant Datahu. You may refer to me as ma'am or lieutenant. I trust that you have all had time to get acquainted, so I'll skip introductions for now. Lieutenant Datahu looked over at me. You must be Sentinel. I will speak to you in a moment, but first, this. She manipulates the golden pins so that they floated in front of each of the Niema. Privates, these are your rank emblems. While you are on base or operating within our kingdom's territory, you will wear them. They are your life. They are your family. Do not lose your family. If you are caught without them, you will be punished. You may wear them wherever you want, but they must be placed in the correct orientation, and they must be visible from the front. She carefully attached each of the pins to the Niema. Now that my introduction speech is over, follow me. End of chapter. Chapter 3. Hello, everyone, she announced as she landed. I am 2nd Lieutenant Datahu. You may refer to me as ma'am or lieutenant. I trust that you have all had time to get acquainted, so I'll skip introductions for now. Lieutenant Datahu looked me over. You must be Sentinel. I'll speak to you in a moment, but first, this. She manipulated the golden pins so that they floated in front of each of the Niema. Privates, these are your rank emblems. While you are on base or operating within the kingdom's territory, you will wear them.
They are your life. They are your family. Do not lose your family. If you are caught without them, you will be punished. You may wear them wherever you want, but they must be placed in the correct orientation, and they must be visible from the front. She carefully attached each of the pins to the Niema. Now that my introduction speech is over, follow me. She spread her wings and started flying towards the exit. Before stopping and hovering for a moment, she turned to me. Sentinel, we will be flying quite a distance. Your master can simply summon you once we have arrived. Please wait here. Sure, I said and sat back down. They all flew away and closed the vine door behind them. I ended up waiting for about 10 minutes for them to summon me. Well, I did. I pulled out the sheet of paper Suma had helped me write. On it was, as she called it, the rules of magic. While she travelled for 3 days to the city, I had asked her for more information about magic, and she took the time to explain. I made sure to write down as much as I could. Well, actually, I typed it all out and printed it off later, but whatever. Whenever I had a few moments, I made sure to study it. There are a few different types of magic, rituals, rites, and spells, all drawn from the same source, but they are accomplished through different means. Rituals are complicated magical events that require a minimum of 2 mages to perform. They are used to apply some measure of extreme control over an object, person, or environment, often with supernatural or unusual effects that normal spells can't achieve. They are semi-permanent, but can be undone with great knowledge and effort. This type of magic requires the most amount of energy to perform, and usually takes a significant amount of time. They also apparently require expensive magical components to perform. I guess it's essentially some combination of rites and spells being performed individually, but I didn't really understand that one too well. Rites are more of a cross between a ritual and a spell. They only need a single caster to perform, but often take a good bit of mana with sometimes magical components. A rite allows a caster to take more control of something than a spell would, but in return it takes longer to cast. Suma said that the bonding I did with my weapons is a good example of rites. She also said it included summoning, domination, and curses. Spells were the ones she didn't need to explain much to me. They're quick and easy to perform magical events that require minimum energy and are usually only performed by a single mage. They're used for everything from day-to-day chores to battlefield attacks. I guess spells make up most of all the magic most people do. Honestly, I just assumed that they were all spells and like different subtypes, but apparently not. Just as I was about to read the section on magical artifacts again, Suma summoned me. I appeared in a large cavern-like place, but made entirely of vines and molded stone. In the room was about 29 Niema of various sizes and colors. Most were shades of blue, then there was the second lieutenant who was white, and then there was Odin's in row. Good, now that everyone is here, we can begin, Second Lieutenant Datahu said. She flew up and perched on the molded stone column near the front of the room. Beside her were 8 other Niema, each with what I figured was high-ranking symbol pins of their own. Among the Niema was the major from our boot camp. Greetings, everyone. I am Major in charge of the Drake Brigade. I'm the highest commanding officer in charge of your team, and my job is to oversee the entirety of this operation. You'll be organized into 4 squadrons, each commanded by a captain and a lieutenant. You will receive your orders from them and your missions from me. As part of the King's armed forces, you'll be sent to many dangerous locations, and as part of the Drakes, you'll be expected to accomplish the impossible. Each of your squadrons will be mostly comprised of battle mages, your familiars, and 1 healing mage. Only a single healing mage, Suma said over our private connection. That seems dangerous. The reason for this is due to the nature of our operations. The Drakes rely mainly on stealth and RARR tactics. That is, rapid assault and rapid retreat, the Major said. Hit-and-run style guerrilla warfare, I thought to myself. RARR tactics require small squadrons moving quickly and covertly to accomplish their missions. You will be sent behind enemy lines. Most of your missions will be without backup, and you could be gone for months at a time on missions if needed. We are now going to break you up into your squadrons. The captains will call your names and number. If you hear your name and number, go to the captain that called it. They will be in charge of your squadron. I wish you all safety, luck, and most importantly, success. The Major ended his speech, and the first of our 4 captains began calling out names. Suma and I were in the 3rd squad, which was led by Captain Gagolis and 2nd Lieutenant Datahu. End of chapter. Chapter 4.
I wish you all safety, luck, and most importantly, success." The Major ended his speech, and the first of our 4 captains began calling out names. Suma and I were in the 3rd squad, which was led by Captain Gagolus and 2nd Lieutenant Datahu. 2nd Lieutenant Datahu flew up to me and the Major's speech.
"Sentinel, it is time to talk," she said.
"Yes, ma'am. How can I help you?" I asked.
"You have chaos magic. By royal decree, we will be giving you a specialized training to allow you to utilize your skills to their fullest. This will be on top of your training along with the other new members."
"More training? I thought that the camp was already trained for us," I asked, confused.
"If you were going to be a normal soldier, then yes, the camp would have been sufficient, but this team is going to be behind enemy lines. You need to be ready for that. Besides, even by standards of a normal soldier, you fall short."
"What?"
"But I thought your ability to use chaos magic granted you and your master a place on this team, but I will not allow a single untrained mage to put the rest of the Drakes in danger."
I understand," I said solemnly. "What kind of training will it be?"
"As I understand it, you completely lack an understanding of fundamentals, correct?" she asked.
Yes. That's fair."
"Then I will start here. After you have completed your team training and live fire exercises, you will report to the private tutoring with a specifically chosen mage theory instructor we have selected."
"Yes, ma'am." After our talk, Captain Gagolus brought our team together and led us to our quarters. Well, the Niam's quarters.
"Sentinel, you are technically a familiar, so we do not know any special accommodations that you may need. Until we can find a more permanent solution, you will simply return home after training rather than staying here," Captain Gagolus explained.
"Excellent. Now, everyone will have 1 day to get settled. Specialized stealth, team combat, and aerial evasion training starts tomorrow." With that, the captain and lieutenant left us to get settled in. I didn't know that they meant by the first because nobody was carrying anything. They're all birds, after all. But one by one, everyone started summoning large chests and boxes of supplies. The floor filled with one magic circle after the other until everyone, even Suma, had summoned at least 2 boxes of materials. We didn't need to make introductions because everyone who was on our team was at the Ember that we met earlier in the waiting room. Odin's, Ro, Suma, Nine, and the lieutenant, and finally the captain. Once everything was summoned, I watched as they started to use mana wrapping to position everything where they needed or wanted around their beds, nests, / whatever you call them.
"Jake, would you mind helping me?"
Suma asked while she carefully moved some kind of brown fabric from a box in her nest. "Sure, no problem," I said and took it out from her as she stopped the mana wrapping.
"Thank you, Jake. Fabric is more difficult for me than the solid objects."
"I find rolling it up tightly helps keep it stable," Rose said, and picked up a neatly rolled tube of cloth and mana wrapping around before laying it in its nest.
"I'll have to try that next time," Suma said. "Jake, would you just lay that on my roost for me?"
Roost! I should have guessed. I thought and laid the fabric down, carefully spreading it out the way I thought it would be more comfortable. "So, does anyone need help getting settled in?" I offered. "I could use some help lifting the sack," Odin said. I picked it up for him and noticed that it was kinda heavy, and pretty big too. At least as tall as Odin's was, and 1/3 a meter wide. "Well, what's in this?" I asked. "My favorite seeds. I wasn't sure I'd be able to get them out here, so I brought them along enough to last a few months. These grow the best Iggy fruits," he explained. I helped everyone unpack, and we all talked a bit too. They learned Suma was their healing mage, and I was a chaos mage user, which freaked them out a bit at first. Then they all started talking about themselves. Rao and Odin's were cousins. They volunteered together a year ago and were both battle mages. Odin specialized in fire and lightning types of energy magic, while Ro specialized in water and plant-type magic. Nine was a sport mage who used soul magic, specifically memory and illusion.
"What are your specialties, Jake?"
Nine asked.
"You do chaos magic, right? You must have a pretty incredible one."
I don't really have one, I don't think. I kinda just use whatever I need to, you know," I said. "Well, you must be better at one of the forms than others," Odin theorized. "I guess I'm pretty good with fire magic," I offered. but my affinity is for inversion.
But does that mean that your fire is cold then?
Ro asked. What do you mean? The flames your magic produces, are they cold? Because of the inversion, I mean. I don't think so. I've definitely melted stuff before, I said.
Having been close to his flames on several occasions, I can assure you that they are quite warm, almost unbearably so.
Shuma interjected. I did turn flames cold once, though, I added. I put some mana into a fire rune, and it froze what I was trying to heat up. So your flames are cold ones, then, Odin said. Well, no. What happened was my inversion mana affected the rune, and that's why the flames were cold, I explained.
Did you not tell me that you also turned the magistrate's flames cold, Jake?
Shuma asked. Oh, yeah. I guess that's 2 times, then. Are you sure you don't have cold flames? Yeah, it sure sounds like you might, Rose said jokingly. I laughed. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. My inversion doesn't affect my own spells, just others.
Have you ever tried?
9 asked. Well, actually, no. No, I haven't. I've never really occurred to me, I said, surprised at my own oversight.
You should try it during training,
9 suggested. End of chapter. Chapter 5. Are you sure you don't have cold flames? That sure sounds like you might, Ro jokingly said. I laughed. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. My inversion doesn't affect my own spells, just others. Have you ever tried? 9 asked. Well, actually, no. No, I haven't. I've never really occurred to me, I said, surprised at my own oversight.
You should try it during training,
9 suggested. Huh. Maybe I will, I said. After talking, I asked Suma to send me back home for a bit.
Are you sure, Jake?
She asked. Yeah, I told my mum I would call her after we arrived and got set up, I explained.
Okay, I'll see you tomorrow morning.
With that, she sent me back home, and I called my mum. The phone rang for a moment, and I heard the voice. Hello? Hi, Mum, I said.
Oh, Jake.
How was the base? Did you finish getting settled in? She asked sweetly. Yeah, we arrived a few hours ago, and I had a kind of assembly with everybody. They split us up and assigned us to teams before having everyone unpack.
Oh, that's good. How's Suma settling in then?
She's good. We did find out that she was going to be the only healer on our team, though, so she's a bit nervous about that.
What? Why is she the only one?
It seems unsafe. Well, we're a small team, only about 6 total, so I guess they figured that we wouldn't need more than one, I theorized. Anyway, we spent an hour setting up her things in the team's room. Then she sent me back for the night. We are having training tomorrow, so I'm probably gonna go get some sleep early tonight.
What will you do until then?
I don't know. Probably just make some dinner and watch a movie.
Okay, Jake. That reminds me, you got a letter yesterday. It was sent here by mistake.
Who's it from?
It's from the HMRC, she said.
Revenue and Customs. Why did they send me a letter? I asked.
Well, I don't know. I didn't open it.
Ha! Actually, there was an issue with my bank a while back. Maybe it's about that. I'll come pick it up later today, okay?
Much later, because I have my dominoes group tonight at 5.
I looked at the clock on my phone, 3:48. I can be over in about 20 minutes. Do you need anything while I'm out? I asked.
Maybe some bread, dear. Whole wheat and with raisins, if you could find it.
Okay. See you in a bit.
Bye-bye,
she said, and I hung up. 7 minutes later, I was walking around the store. Raisin bread, raisin bread, raisin bread. I chanted as I searched. Raisin. The sounds of flapping cut me off, and I turned around to see what it was. What the? I looked around the empty aisle for a few seconds before chalking it up to a trolley passing by. Finding the bread, I put it into my basket. Then Amboss landed on my shoulder.
Do you remember the first time you gave me bread, Zachariah?
Amboss laughed, his sea-colored feathers ruffling as he thought about it. Of course I do, I laughed. You acted as if it was nectar of the heavens. And this bread must be even better. It has those delicious raisins in it as well. We both laughed as we remembered, until someone came and tapped me on the shoulder.
Sir, are you okay?
The store employee wondered. Suddenly, I forgot what was so funny, and who I was talking to. Yeah, I'm fine. Excuse me, I said, with my head filled with fog. I left the store and the bread behind and went out and sat in my car with the door open. Suma, something's not, I said, trying to contact her, but my head was spinning and throbbing too much for me to focus. Suma, can you hear me? I said, and fell to the ground. This is the last thing I remembered for a while. End of chapter. Chapter 6. Sir, are you okay? A store employee wondered. Suddenly, I forgot what was so funny and who I was talking to. Yeah, I'm fine. Excuse me, I said with my head full of fog. I left the store and the bread behind, then went out and sat in my car with the door open. Suma, something's not, I said, trying to contact her, but my head was spinning and throbbing too much for me to focus. Suma, can you hear me? I said, and fell to the ground. That was the last thing I remembered for a while. Sometime later, I woke up with a throbbing pain in my head and a bright light in my eyes. Ah! I groaned. Mr. Vandal, you're awake. Excellent. Are you okay? A voice said. My head hurts, I said. What happened? I moaned as I slowly opened my eyes. I tried moving around, but that only made the pain in my head worse, so I stopped. It seems you fell and hit your head, sir. What's the last thing you remember? The voice came close enough to see that it was coming from a doctor. Where am I? Is this a hospital? I wondered. Yes, sir, you collapsed getting into your car. A store employee called 999 for you, the doctor said. My mum, I was going to go see her, I said, my mind in a confused fog. Yes, we already contacted her. She's on her way now, the doctor said. Mr. Vandal, do you have any idea what may have caused your collapse? It was the flaming man, the figure of flame. He did this, I said, and at the time not realizing what I was saying. Hallucinations. He may have had head trauma, the doctor said. At first, I thought she was talking to me, but after the fog left my brain, I realized that she was probably talking to a nurse who was somewhere that I couldn't see. Schedule a CT and psych eval. I don't remember much of what happened for the next 10 minutes, mostly because of the haze. Partially because it was just the doctor talking to the nurse about how I was probably on drugs and I needed a tox screen. Soon, my mum burst into my room crying, shoved past the doctor and nearly knocked her over and hugged me. Jake, thank goodness you're okay. What happened? Are you hurt? What happened? Mum screamed as tears ran down her face. She hugged me so hard I heard something pop, and not in a good way. In a cry of pain kind of way, which is exactly what I did. Ah, Mum, my back! I yelped. Mum turned to the doctor. What happened to him? The doctor, who was rubbing her shoulder after having been knocked into the wall by a charging bull that was my mum, answered. We aren't sure yet. He fell unconscious and may have hit his head. He was delirious when he woke up. He was talking about a flaming man. Mum's eyes went wide, and then she looked at me confused and worried, but soon her eyes narrowed, and I felt my butt cheeks pucker when I realized that she realized what I didn't want her to ever figure out. I was keeping things from her. She turned back to the doctor with a mask of friendliness and pleasantness draped over her true feelings. Thank you for taking care of him. How long will the tests take? About 6 hours total, the doctor answered. Thank you. I'll wait here with him, Mum told her. As soon as the doctor and nurse left, Mum's mask came off. Jake? Yeah? I asked nervously. Who was the flaming man? A cold calm dripped in her voice, the likes of which I hadn't heard since the time she caught me smoking in high school. I knew that eerie calm meant bad things. Nobody, Mum. I was just having a bad dream and was... Jake? She looked at me with a glare of almost begged me to try and lie to her. Sometimes my mum is really unnerving. Okay, so I met this guy. He did something to my head and I'd been seeing things, but this was the first time I've passed out, I confessed, talking quite quickly. Suma's point of view. I was in my roost, nearly asleep, when I heard a voice. It was far away but calling to me. It sounded like Zachariah, my familiar. I flew towards the voice and the soaring high in the sky, and the voice was growing louder as it called out for me. Amboss! Amboss! Finally, I saw Zachariah. He was practicing in a field with his sword, like always. I landed on a rock next to the small sapling and talked to him. Hello, Zachariah, I said. Hello, Amboss. Do you need something? The royal court wants to see us. To scold us again, he groaned, and used the reverse summons to send his weapon away. Most likely. But maybe we will get lucky and they'll just kill us instead. Better than sitting through another of their long-winded lectures, he joked. Do you know what it is about? Do you really need to ask? I wondered. Let me guess. They once again disagree with how I use my magic in battle. He shook his head. We are at war. Doesn't really matter how the enemy dies, as long as they do.
I believe that they are more concerned with the new spell that you used in the last battle, actually. The final one that you used that looked like a cloud of fog, I guessed.
I wonder if they'll make it another forbidden spell. He stood up. What do you think, Ambos? Was I wrong to use it?
I thought the spell was rather interesting, and your application of it was superb, I answered.
You know what I'm asking, Ambos.
And you know that I do not care how the enemy dies. Watching them turn on each other like they did, it's what they deserve.
Zachariah nodded his head and looked towards the sky for a moment. All right then, let's go get into trouble, Ambos, he said.
Yes, let's,
I started to say, but was interrupted by yelling, Suma! I jerked awake and saw 9 standing over me. Finally! You're sleepy deeply, don't you? It's time to wake up for training. End of chapter. Book 2, Chapter 7. Suma's Point of View.
Suma!
I jerked awake and saw 9 standing over me.
Finally, you sleep deeply, don't you? It's time to wake up for training. Already?
I asked, confused and in a bit of a haze. I stood and exited my roost, stretching my wings wide. Did you not sleep well then, I take it? 9 asked.
I had a strange dream, I said.
About?
I do not know. I did not recognize anyone in it, and certainly never happened to me, so there was no memory, I explained, as we flew to meet everyone else outside to eat. I told 9 about the dream.
Ambos, wasn't he that famous hero from the time of the dragons? 9 asked as we landed outside. The others were talking amongst themselves, so we simply grew our fruits and started eating.
I believe so. In fact, I'm sure of it,
I said, taking a bite of my fruit. But I don't know any Niema from that time with the name of Zachariah. He must have been an imagination of your sleeping mind, I said.
In the dream, he was not the Niema. In fact, he was a member of Jake's race.
You dreamed that Ambos was the same race as your familiar? I asked.
What? No, Zachariah was the one who was, Oh, what did Jake call his species again? Who means?
I explained. Oh, well, either way, it all sounds like a strange dream, 9 said, taking a bite himself. We talked a bit more until we finished eating, and the lieutenant showed up.
Good morning, everyone. I see that you're all finished eating, so we'll begin today's training. Follow me,
she said before spreading her wings and flying upwards. We all followed behind. She led us to a large domed building with a wide open area that we dug quite deeply into the ground. It was clearly a constructed area. There were far too many sharp edges to be natural.
Welcome to the pits. Here you will be training and training. This is where you will improve your skills so that you won't die the first time you go on a mission.
Why is it underground? Odin's the tallest Niema present on our team asked.
Once you have progressed enough in your training, you will undergo a trial to be confirmed as ready for field duty, and will then be allowed to go on missions. The pit was created to protect the spectators watching the trial.
Can we ask what the trial is? Rao asked nervously. If you need a pit to protect Niema who are just watching it, it must be dangerous.
It'll be live combat. A creature will be summoned for you and your familiar, or Niema partner, if you prefer, to fight. You could also choose a fight alone, and doing so would result in a rank increase if afterwards you were successful. Does this trial apply to even healing mages? I asked.
Yes, it does, she said simply.
May I ask why?
I asked. Anything can happen in combat. There is no way to guarantee your survival, and relying completely on your team to keep you alive in the field will only slow them down and may get you all killed. Every one of you must pass this trial before your team is cleared for duty, Lieutenant Datahu explained.
Just like the entrance test, I said.
The lieutenant started quickly looking around the room and then stared at me.
Private Suma, where is Sentinel? She asked sharply. I haven't summoned him yet, ma'am, I said, nervous.
Do so immediately. From now on, I want him to arrive at the same time as the rest of the team. If he is late again, there will be consequences.
Yes, ma'am, I understand, I said, and started to summon Jake. I summon you, Sentinel.
He slowly began to appear. However, he was in midair again. Ah! He yelped and landed on the floor heavily with a thump. What the heck? He sat up and started looking around. Jake was dressed strangely. His garments were thinner and more free-flowing than normal. Instead of having holes for each of his appendages, it had a single hole that seemed to have gone all the way up his back.
Sorry for summoning you without warning, Jake, I apologized.
Prepare yourself, Sentinel. We're about to begin today's training, Lieutenant Datahu ordered.
Oh, right. I completely forgot, Jake said, standing up.
Lieutenant, I'm sorry, but I don't think it'll be safe for me to train today. I was being treated in a hospital for hallucinations and intermittent loss of consciousness.
The lieutenant seemed confused. Are you saying that you were in some kind of healer's abode or infirmary?
Yes, ma'am.
What? I asked, shocked. Jake, what happened?
I don't know. I passed out after you sent me home and started seeing things that weren't there, he said.
Well, now you've been summoned, the healing aspect should take effect soon, so you should be fine, the lieutenant said. Ma'am, he's been summoned almost every single day for almost a year now. If whatever has happening to him continued even through that, then the healing aspect might not do anything, I told her.
Then cast some of your magic yourself, Private Suma. We need to get started, she snapped.
Ma'am, the first thing they teach us in school is that healing magic cannot solve everything, and may only make some problems worse. If the healing aspect hasn't already healed him, then my magic will not either, I explained.
Ah, I see. A disease that cannot be healed with magic. You have my deepest sympathy, Sentinels. Have your healers told you how much longer you'll have to make I'm not dying, Jake blurted out. I just need to get back to the doctors can fix me. My world never had magic, so we developed other ways to heal people, he said. Actually, I feel fine.
Then why can you not train? Lieutenant Datahu asked, annoyed.
Jake closed his eyes for a second.
Okay, so I'm really strong.
Yes, she said. Would you want someone with my strength who occasionally sees things that aren't there and who already has a history of using overpowered and uncontrolled spells, doing magic anywhere near you? Asked Jake. There was a moment of quiet. I don't, Rose stated. Lion and Odins nodded their heads in agreement and uncomfortably shifted their perches. The lieutenant sighed deeply. Fine, you are excused from training until you have been released to do so from your healer's approval.
Thank you, ma'am, Jake said.
But you will still be required to take the after-training courses with the instructor that we talked about. You won't need to do magic, so you should be safe, she said.
Yes, ma'am, I'm happy to, Jake said as he turned to me.
Suma, could you send me back before the doctor, or worse, my mum comes back? I sent him back, and soon as he was gone, the lieutenant let out a deep sigh. End of chapter. Book 2, Chapter 8. Jake's Point of View. Yes, ma'am, I'm happy to, I said, then turned to Suma. Suma, could you send me back before a doctor, or worse, my mum comes back? She did, and I slowly reappeared back in the room, thankfully, without seeing that flaming figure again.
I told them you went to the bathroom,
my mum's voice announced from behind me. It startled me, and I spun around. Thank you.
You passed out, Jake,
my mum said flatly. She was sitting in one of the chairs by the window that the nurse rolled. I know, I said, unsure why she was reminding me.
Do you? Because you don't act like it.
Why would Suma summon you, knowing what happened? She asked, annoyed. She didn't know, actually. I just told her, and got some time off from the physical training, but they still want me to come for the non-physical stuff, I explained.
Did you tell them you passed out?
Yeah, but they still want me to come for their classes because it won't be dangerous. Mum looked ever more annoyed with each explanation.
Jake, Suma is a doctor, right?
Sort of, I said, as I sat down on the bed. Mum stood up again angrily.
Why can't she just cast one of her spells and fix you then?
Well, she actually did try, but she doesn't understand our biology enough to fix this. A broken bone or something, sure, but passing out. She can't help with that, I said, trying to defend Suma and calm her down. Mum sighed.
Jake, you need to take better care of yourself. You spend so much time in that world, it's taking its toll on you. You almost let slip about Suma when you woke up, and now the doctors think you're hallucinating.
My eyes probably went wide for a second. I considered lying, but I knew that I shouldn't, not this time. Actually, that wasn't a lie. I was hallucinating.
What?
Mum yelled.
Wait, so there really was a man made of flames? I flinched.
Oh, yeah. I forgot they told you about that.
Why wouldn't you tell me?
I didn't want to worry you, I said.
Jake, you joined a foreign military, organized and ran by bird wizards, to fight a magical war in another world. I'm always worried.
Her voice sounded disappointed, scared, and a few other things that made me feel like crap. I sighed. I'm sorry. All right, No more secrets.
Thank you. Now what happened? Why are you hallucinating? She asked and sat back in the chair.
There was this creature. I don't know its name, so I always just called it the figure of flame. I saw it a year ago, just after I met Suma the second time. It didn't do anything then, except for Suma to give me a special familiar's name that she uses when she summons me.
The familiar's name? Mum asked.
That'll take a while to explain. Long story short, names are rare in her world, so naming something is like honoring it in a way.
Why are names rare?
She asked. Because naming something makes it magic stronger, so it needs it's hard for them to do. I'll explain more later. Anyways, the figure demanded she'd give me one, then he vanished. I didn't see him again for a while. Suma was summoning me to start training that day.
You do train a lot,
Mum said, shaking her head. Yeah, you're telling me. If it weren't for her healing magic, I would have walked off my feet. Anyways, Suma summoned me and I saw him again. It was like I was in space or something, like a void, and then I saw him. Once we actually started talking, I realized he was kind of crazy.
How?
She wondered. It's like he has a split personality or something. He switches randomly between angry and calm, and when he does, his looks change. When he is calm, he looks like a humanish shape. When he's mad, he looks more reptilian.
Is he some kind of dragon, then?
I don't think so. Suma says all the dragons of the world went extinct a long time ago, or they left, or something.
What is he, then?
I don't know, and neither does Suma. The first time I saw him was the first time she saw him, too.
Is that all the times you've seen him, then?
Mum asked. No. I saw him a few more times. The last time I saw him, he did something, went into my mind.
Why does everyone from that world try to mind control people?
Mum asked, upset. No, he didn't. It felt more like he was trying to show me something. I think it was memories, I explained.
Why do you think it was memories?
Because that's what those hallucinations felt like. It was like I was reliving something. Well, sort of. Really, it was more like I was interacting with the memory itself.
What was it about?
She asked. It was of a Niema. In the memories, he felt familiar.
He was a familiar like you?
Mum asked, confused. No, I mean, it's just like I knew him.
Oh,
of course, she shook her head. After I was shaken out of my memory by the store employee, I passed out.
Did it hurt?
Mum asked, worried. No, actually it was kind of nice. Like I said, I felt like I knew him, so it was kind of relaxing. The passing out part hurt a bit, though, mostly from hitting my head. Mum leaned forward and put a hand on mine.
Jake, I'm so scared for you.
I'm fine now, Mum, I said.
No, you're not, and that's not what worries me. You're young, you think you're invincible, and you're going off to war. I'm so scared that you won't come back. You will be killed, or I'll never know.
Mum was crying as she spoke. I didn't know what to say. There probably wasn't anything to say. I did my best to reassure her that I would do my best to be careful, and hugged her. It took a while for the doctor to come back, which Mum appreciated because it gave her enough time to dry her tears and fix her makeup. She took me to get an MRI and a few other scans with lots of jumbled letters in their name. I was told that it might be several hours before all the scans came back, so we spent the night in the hospital. It was about 3 a.m. before a new doctor, this time a man, came in and explained the scans. He said they were abnormal and that my brain waves were unusual. They said they were going to order more tests and that I might be here for a few more days. End of chapter. Book 2, Chapter 9. Suma's Point of View. I sent him back, and as soon as he was gone, the lieutenant let out another deep sigh.
Now, Suma, do you have any other familiars to use during training exercises?
The lieutenant asked.
No, ma'am.
Only Jake, I said.
Fine then. While the others will start training with their familiars, you'll begin doing mana control exercises. Have you ever done anything like that before?
Yes, ma'am.
But it was a very long time ago, back when I was still attending the academy. Do you remember the chatter variation? She asked.
Yes, ma'am. Good. Begin doing that. And once everyone has finished your training, you will join us for our next session. After giving me orders, the lieutenant and the rest of our squad flew down into the pit and began doing the battle drills. I found a quiet corner by myself and began my own exercises. Mana control exercises are exactly what they sound like. They are specific techniques meant to improve the upper limit and precision of one's mana control. There are 7 basic variations. The one I was doing focused primarily on precision rather than amount. You start by forming mana into a triangle state, then shape it. I also started with a sphere when I did them in the academy, then moved on to more complex shapes like pyramids and squares. It was easy enough to get started, and before long, I was shaping my mana into increasingly complex structures. Just as I was about to finish a dodecahedron, I lost focus and the shape erupted. There is no danger when it fails, but it does release some force, so the feathers of my outstretched wings were ruffled slightly. I relaxed for a moment, pulling my wings back to my sides to release some of the tension before starting again. I took a deep breath and began. This time, rather than starting from the first shape, I started from just slightly before I lost control. I was able to make it a bit further this time, almost beating my own personal record from the academy days. But just as I was about to, someone shouted, "Suma, dodge!" I looked behind me and then fell to the ground, just in time to witness a fire spell zip overhead. "Are you okay?" Lieutenant Datu asked, not sounding overly concerned that I was nearly hit by a stray spell. "Yes," I said hesitantly. "Sorry," the voice yelled out. I was too preoccupied looking myself over to check, but it sounded like 9. "Watch your aim," she chastised. "Now do the drill again, everyone." After that, I decided to relocate myself out of their lines of fire. I started again behind a large rock wall several seconds away from the pit. Now that I was safely behind cover, I started the exercise again. I would like to say that I beat my own best, but I never did. I was too distracted thinking about my dream last night. Something about her was not perched right with me. I couldn't recall the entire thing, but I did remember having a conversation. I tried to picture it again in my mind, but the harder I thought, the further it slipped, and the more distorted it became. My eyes were closed as I tried to picture the dream, but I felt the mana exercise fail again, and I started anew without bothering to open my eyes. I tried picturing that person's face again, the one who I was talking to in the dream. Whoever it was, he looked a bit like Jake, except this man was shorter and wore strange garments, a bit like Jake's armor, but it showed less skin than Jake's. I gave up after a while and opened my eyes to see a face staring back at me. It was made of pure mana, and it was a mystery man from my dream. It startled me, and I lost concentration, which shattered the image and the exercise. All that was left of the face was a force from the mana dispersing that quickly radiated out and away. "How?" I looked around. Nobody was watching, so I could not ask anyone and recognize the man. I doubted they would anyway, if I did not. Then they likely would not either. "Suma," the lieutenant said, landing beside me. "We are starting the team training. Let's go." I followed her to the pit and landed beside the others. The lieutenant perched in front of us and explained what he would be doing. "For the next hour, we will be doing live-fire magic drills. You will not be allowed to use your primary affinity, only your secondary." "May I ask why?" asked Ro. "If you only train your single affinity, then situations in which that affinity is useless will cripple you. If you only learn water-type magics, then a desert will be your undoing. Alternatively, if you all can do is fight, then all you'll be useless all other times. Diversify your skills. It will save your life, and your squad's as well." After explaining, she created several targets by molding the ground out to the other end of the pit. With a second spell, she turned the dirt's targets into metal. "Was that a transmutation spell?" Odin's asked, as shocked as the rest of us. "Incredible. I thought only royal and court mages could use that to advanced levels of magic," I said. "You are correct. I learned the technique during my tenure as a court mage," Lieutenant Datu explained. We were all impressed, but no one had time to ask any more questions because she immediately ordered us to begin. 1 hour may not sound like a long time, but when you are casting one spell after another, it feels like a whole day. By the end, my mana was drained and I was laying on the ground. 9 had vomited and collapsed from overexertion, and Odins and Rao were desperately trying to use what little mana they had left to continue training. I would have been impressed with them if I did not know the reason. They were competing to see which one would last longer before passing out. Odin's was victorious in the end, but only by a few seconds. You might be wondering why we pushed ourselves to such extremes. Why didn't simply rest? We tried. Once. 9 rested for a moment, but soon after his target started moving towards him and attacked him by shooting chunks of metal from itself. "The longer you rest, the harder the training becomes," the lieutenant proclaimed. 9 began casting his spells again, and the target returned to normal. When he finally collapsed, I was sure he was going to be attacked again, but the target did not move. At least they know the difference between resting and dying, Odins proclaimed, when he noticed it too. End of chapter. Book 2, Chapter 10. Jake's Point of View. My second day in hospital was mostly waiting and having my blood drawn. They ordered an MRI, and that was so fun. If you have ever had one and want to know what it's like, go find a drainage pipe just large enough that you can only fit into it if you are a child or a small dog. Then try desperately not to have a panic attack while they shove you in anyway. I was having flashbacks of a horrible cave the whole time while teetering on the edge of freaking out and fainting. And if you want to make your experience as accurate as possible, go find a howler monkey and have him scream in your ear while you're in the drainage pipe. That should be pretty close to what it's actually like. I was in the hospital for quite a while, about a week and a half, and in that time I became so familiar with the inside of those scanning machines that I probably could have built one of them myself. MRIs, PET scans, even X-rays, and sleep studies. At one point they attached a bunch of electrodes and leads to my head and told me to say the alphabet backwards. "Why, hello, Mr. Vandal," the neurologist said as he walked into the room I was in. Mum was gone right now. She needed to run some errands, so it was just him and me at the moment. "Hey," I said. "I got the results of your test back last night." He took a seat in the small rolling chair near my bed. "Good news or bad?" I asked. "Both. The good news is that we didn't find anything suspicious from the MRI or the EEG, so it probably wasn't a seizure." "And the bad news?" I asked. "The bad news is we still don't know what caused your hallucinations and fainting. At this point, we are forced to conclude that your symptoms aren't biological in nature, but are probably psychological." He pulled out his pen and picked up a clipboard from a nearby table. "You mentioned you were seeing a therapist, correct?" "Yeah, Dr. Maxwell. She's been my therapist for a while now." "Okay, in addition to Dr. Maxwell, I'm going to recommend you to a psychiatrist. His name is Dr. William Bartholomew, and he specializes in this type of thing. I'll give you his number, and his office can set you up with an appointment." With that final meeting, I was released from the hospital. I filled Mum and later Suma in on what the neurologist said. A day later, Suma summoned me so that we could talk about my options. "I'm sorry, what exactly does a psychiatrist do?" Suma asked from her metal perch. We were in her new room, the one shared by the other recruits, but they were all out at the moment. I was sitting on a chair molded of rock that Suma taught me how to make. "They're like healers, but for the mind," I said. "And how exactly is that different from what Dr. Maxwell does?" she asked. "Dr. Maxwell is a therapist. They deal with more trauma and non-medical issues. Psychiatrists deal with medicines, injuries, and diseases that affect the mind," I told her. "But it doesn't matter. I don't think I'll be making an appointment with him." "Why not? Are you not worried about having more hallucinations?" "I am, but I don't think he'll be able to help me. We already know what caused them. All I wanted to know was whether or not that flaming figure did any actual physical damage. Since the doctor didn't see anything on any of the scans, I think that means whatever is happening is magical, not physical." "I see," said Suma. "You do have a point. I may have a suggestion then." "Okay." "We should perform a memory delve on both of us." "Why?" "You said your hallucinations felt like they were memories, did you not? If they really are, then Wheel Delve will help us to understand them." "Okay, but why do you need one?" I wondered. I've also been experiencing strange dreams, not too dissimilar from what you described your visions to be like," Suma confessed. "What? When?" I shouted. "I believe it was around the same time you experienced your first vision." Suma's head was hanging slightly lower. She was avoiding eye contact too. Even her normal glitter was slightly dulled. "Why didn't you say anything?" I asked, confused. "I did not wish to worry you, and at first I thought it was simply a dream. Now, after hearing your descriptions of what you saw, I doubt it was a coincidence." "So, what did you see?" Suma looked back at me as she explained. "I cannot remember clearly, but I do know that there was a Niema called Ambos and a Vikling called Zachariah." "The same people I saw, or thought I was anyway." "It was the same for me. My dream took place from the perspective of Ambos." "Why does that name sound so familiar?" I asked, trying to remember.
It was the name of the hero mage, she said.
Right, the one with the Viking familiar. I snapped my fingers and shook my hand as I remembered. So, but the framing man somehow has the memories, I asked.
It is possible he took their memories somehow. Spells of that nature have existed for some time. It was thought that our ancestors, before the ravaging, would have had very advanced and diverse magics, even compared to today,
Suma explained. And you think the memory delve will help us out with what happened?
Yes, I do.
Okay, let's do it, I said, ready to go.
We need to find someone capable of performing the spell, Suma said. I do not have the ability to perform one on myself, or at all, actually. I have no talent for mind magic.
So, who do we know who can do it? I asked.
I might know a person. She was a court mage.
Who? I asked. End of chapter. Book 2, Chapter 11. Jake's Point of View. So, who do we know who can do it? I asked.
I might know one person. She was a court mage, Suma said.
Who? I asked.
Lieutenant Datahu. She might be able to help us, and if not, we can just ask around the base.
She's a court mage. Aren't those like the highest-ranking mages or something?
She was, but she isn't anymore. You can't be a court mage and work as a lieutenant in the King's armed forces, she explained.
Okay.
But why not? A court mage must stand ready at the capital to defend members of the King's court, as well as be on standby should they be needed for other matters.
Oh, all right then. Do you think she'll help?
Yeah, it is possible, Suma said hesitantly.
What about likely?
That I cannot say.
Suma and I had left the room when went searching for the lieutenant. We bumped into Nine on the way, and he said he saw her at the pits, which was some kind of fighting arena Suma had told me about a week or so ago. As we neared the pits, we were started to hear the sounds of battle.
She must be training, I said. Indeed. We should wait for her to finish.
I didn't argue. I wanted to see what a court mage training looked like. Also, the lieutenant is little intimidating. We watched from above. Suma was perched on a metal bar, and I leaned over it. The lieutenant's training was impressive. She was doing maneuvers jet fighter pilots must dream about, all while casting spell after spell. Her movements were so quick I couldn't even follow them. She could turn on a dime, do a barrel roll, and then fire a successive attacks. Wham, 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 wham! 4 shots fired off and rang out as they hit their targets. Yeah, that's targets, plural. She was tracing off against 3 training dummies, like the kind we used at basic, and one other thing that looked to be made of living rock. Is that some kind of golem? I asked Suma.
Do you mean the rock dummy?
Yeah.
I have never heard of its name before, but I can attest that it is quite strong, she said. What is a golem?
It is something that isn't alive but can move anyway. Usually it's controlled from a distance by someone too weak to fight for themselves, I said.
Ah, yes, then it is a golem,
she said. We talked without looking away from the fight. Not that it would have made much of a difference for me anyway. The lieutenant finished the fight with nature spell. Magic circles appeared under each target, and vines shot up from the ground, impaling all 4 of her targets. The training dummy stopped moving and fell to the ground, while the rock golem shattered and crumbled to dust. For a second, I wondered if I should applaud.
Are you going to keep perching there like knots on a branch, or tell me what you wanted? Lieutenant Datahu turned to us and called out. Yes, ma'am,
Suma stuttered nervously. I have to admit, even I was surprised she saw us during all of that.
We have a request for you, ma'am.
A request?
Yes, ma'am. But first, do you know how to perform a memory dive? I asked.
I do.
Can you perform one on Jake and myself?
Suma asked. She looked confused. Why?
It is related to my condition.
The doctors on my world were able to confirm that there was no physical damage causing my hallucinations. So we think the reason lies in my mind, I explained.
What led you to that conclusion? She wondered.
Well, we think it was caused by memories that were implanted by that figure in flame, I said.
Figure in flame?
What are you talking about? The lieutenant asked.
Oh, I knew I was forgetting something,
Suma whispered to herself. We spent the next half an hour explaining everything from the beginning, starting with the first appearance all the way up to Suma's own vision.
So let me see if I got this straight.
Lieutenant Datahu sighed. You both have seen visions of memories you don't possess, and you are only telling me now, after all this time. That, sums it up, yeah, I acknowledged. Do you two realize how many regulations this violates? Not just keeping medical conditions secret, Lady Suma, but the cause as well. I could even begin to list them, she said, shaking her head.
So, can you help us?
Suma asked. Yes and no. I cannot perform a memory delve myself. That would violate regulations. But I can put in an official request for one to be performed on our base staff. We have a few members of permanent staff who can perform the spell safely, she explained.
Thank you, ma'am,
I said. Thank me by reporting for training as soon as you're able, and by reporting any more sightings of this figure in flame.
Yes, ma'am.
Suma and I agreed. Now, Sentinel, I have a request for you as well, she said. Ma'am? End of chapter. Chapter 12. Jake's Point of View. I was sitting on a chair made of sculpted vines, listening to my personal tutor talk about magic theory and practical applications as part of my after-training lessons that I was supposed to do. Every day after everyone else got done with their training, I come here and learn about a variety of magic manipulation techniques and how to be more precise control of my mana. I may not make it sound fun, but it was actually pretty interesting. Recently, I learned mana control technique. Apparently, there are a lot of variations, but he just showed me a few. Now enlarge the mana sphere, but don't let the concentration waver, or it will rupture. My instructor, who didn't have a name, told me. He was perched on a metal pole about 10 feet behind me. What happens? Boom! The sphere exploded like a balloon going off in my ear. In hindsight, I should have known better. I yelled and rubbed my ringing ears. I literally just said to concentrate, he said, shaking his head. I didn't do that last time, I said. That was the Naoko variation. This is the Chato. Do you remember how I described the Naoko? He asked. I thought for a second. You said it was more about output than control. Yes, exactly. Chato variation is the exact opposite. So fading here is more likely, and is less dangerous because you aren't using much mana. The Naoko version is pretty simple to do. He had me build a lot of mana, then release it in a single blast. He said that it was to improve how quickly I could utilize my mana, and to improve how fast I could store it up. Wait, what do you mean less dangerous? Was the Naoko one not safe? It was safe enough. For you. Well, now, he tells me, I thought to myself. What do you mean safe enough for me? Your own mana is unlikely to hurt you, but that doesn't mean it isn't dangerous. Why do you think I'm perched over here? He pointed out. Yeah, but what would it do, I asked. Well, I don't know about your inversion mana, and I'm not too keen on finding out, but depending on the attribute one possesses, the rupture would have a variety of effects onto anyone caught in its path. Energy is more likely to burn you. Nature causes mold to grow sometimes. Other times, plants in the affected area die. And memory attribute mana once caused me to relive an entire day in my mind, so it really depends on the mage, he explained. As he explained, I restarted trying to form the sphere, and it popped again. You seem to be having significantly more trouble with the control variation. Yeah, but I don't know why. My railgun spell must require more control than this, so I don't know what I'm doing wrong, I said, confused. Did you perhaps use a magic circle for your spells? The instructor asked. I don't even know how that works, I said. I'll put it in the lesson plan when I get a chance. Perhaps your visualizations need improvement. How are you picturing the sphere in your mind? I asked. I wasn't. Was I supposed to? I turned to him and asked. It would help, yes, but it isn't always a requirement. Actually, many high-ranking mages pride themselves in not needing to rely on visualizations when doing this training. How can you tell the difference? I asked. Using visualizations makes the sphere smooth, but using only your manual control causes lines to appear, he said. I looked at the sphere I was forming. There were countless lines moving in every direction, like a ball of yarn, but translucent. Can I try with visualization, then? I asked. You can, but I prefer you to not have to rely on them. In combat, you won't always have time for such things. So you should get used to training the harder way if you can. It will help you on the long term. So, I shouldn't use them? I wondered. You can, but sparingly. Build up your abilities without them. How am I supposed to use a visualization sparingly? I asked, confused. The way I do it is by only imagining the outline of the sphere, not the finished product, he explained. I turned away from him and refocused back on the sphere, doing as he suggested, on picturing a hollow circle in my mind. It really made a difference. The sphere was far easier to maintain this time. I was able to maintain it for 30 seconds before it ruptured again. I practiced this way for about an hour. Apparently, once you're able to make a sphere and maintain it for a full minute, then you start making other shapes. I never made it past the sphere. After my training was done for the day, I found Suma and went home. I needed to prepare for tomorrow, and for the favor that Lieutenant Datahu asked me to do for her. End of chapter. Chapter 13. Jake's point of view.
Are you ready, Jake?
Suma asks as we finished my preparations. Lieutenant Datahu had a condition for her cooperation with the memory delve. She wanted a sparring match with me. As I'll ever be, I said, summoning my armor Jericho onto my body.
Do you have a plan to win?
Suma asks, perched on my shoulder armor. I started walking to the pit for a bout. I'm not expecting to win. She's a professional with years of experience. I'm just a lucky idiot with a couple of pointy magic sticks, I said.
That is true,
she agreed. Maybe a bit too quickly, though.
Then perhaps I should ask, do you have a plan to not be horribly maimed?
I'm gonna put up Igus and summon Destiny, then activate the ruins. Hopefully that'll keep some distance between us. Igus is a shield I had made for me, and Destiny is my spear. Both were fitted with magic runes by an acquaintance of mine in exchange for letting her do experiments on me.
Jake, do you remember that she was a ranged attacker, right? It is her specialty, Suma pointed out.
Yeah, but so am I. My weapons work well in case someone gets too close, but all of my attack spells work best at a distance.
Jake, you cannot attack her with your attack spells. She would be obliterated.
Suma shouted. Don't worry, I won't use Railgun or Lightning Bolt. Besides, those take too long anyway. I was just going to use my fireballs and the runes on my weapons.
Even still, it seems a bit too dangerous,
she said, worried. Won't there be healers standing by?
Yes, but healing magic has its limits.
I'll be careful, I said. A few moments later, we arrived at the pit for my match. There were dozens of other Niema perched on poles and vines set up around the pit's dome. Members of every squad had come to watch. Even the captain and major had come. Suma, as we got closer, Suma flew over and perched with the other members of our team. "Are you nervous?" Odins asked. "A little," I said. "That's probably smart," Nine said, laughing. "Any last words?" Mal asked jokingly. "Very funny," I said, ducking under the bars of the dome and dropping into the pit. "Please try not to get hurt too badly, Jake," Suma said. "Even you, Suma," I thought. The lieutenant landed on the ground at the other end of the pit. In between us, Captain Gagalis, our team's leader, landed. "All right," the captain started. "The rules are as follows. No lethal spells, no purposefully maiming one another beyond healing capabilities, no using summoned creatures or familiars, no leaving the pit, and absolutely no hard feelings after you lose." When he said that last part, his eyes cut to me for a moment. I sighed. I knew I wasn't going to win, but did they have to keep reminding me? "Do you both consent to this bout?"
"I do,"
Datahu said. "I do," I said. "Well then," the captain flew up and out of the ring quickly. "Begin!" The lieutenant started before I could summon Destiny, but I was already in my armor and had Igus, so I wasn't caught off guard. She launched the attacks with fire in rapid succession. Pang, pa-pang. One after another hit Igus, but I barely felt it. I summoned Destiny and pointed the tip to her. I activated the runes, and a softball-sized bullet of air shot out at her. In an instant, she spread her wings and bolted straight up. The bullet just narrowly missed her tail feathers as it hit the ground behind her. As we started the fight, the cheers from the other squads began. "You got this, Viking!"
"Get him, Lieutenant!"
Fanning her wings again and turning on a dime, she dodged the second bullet I had fired. Trying to keep track of her in flight was like trying to watch a bumblebee fly around. My eyes almost couldn't keep up. She launched two more attacks from the front. Pang, chang! That first hit Igus, but the second connected with the armor on my shin. That one I felt, even through the metal. I could feel the force of the attack, like someone shoved my leg to the side. I managed to avoid losing my footing and activated the rune on Igus. A wave of force exploded from the shield, knocking me back slightly with the recoil, but not too severely. I had plenty of time to practice and get used to it back at boot camp while training with the attack mages. The wave hit her and sent her flying to the other end of the ring, but it didn't seem like it had hurt her much. I dropped Destiny to the ground and shouted, "Fireball!" and sent a weakened version of my normal fireballs at her. It was much smaller because I used less mana, and it was more bright purple than normal as well. I thought that she would dodge it. I was wrong. Instead, she caught it with mana wrapped and did a barrel roll, and the fireball changed directions mid-flight and was flung back at me. I dropped Aigis to my side to cast a spell, and couldn't react fast enough to put it back up. My spell hit me square in the chest plate, knocking the wind out of me. At the time, I was surprised, but thinking back on it, I was grateful that the attack didn't hit her. Even holding back, I still put way too much power into the attack. It might have really hurt her. "Vines!" she shouted, casting her first verbal spell of the match. Instantly, the vines that were scattered randomly around the pit started wrapping themselves around my arms and legs. I activated the runes on my armor, not bothering to think specifically about which ones, and simply activated them all. I knew I had one rune for times like this, but didn't even have enough time to remember what it was. I felt several things happen all at once. My chest stopped hurting as the healing rune activated. I stopped breathing so heavily as the stamina rune kicked in, and a massive blast of air shot out from every inch of my armor, forcing the vines off of me. Splinters and chunks of vines shot across the arena, and I quickly stood back up and summoned Aigis while the lieutenant was distracted with that. It didn't take her long to adapt, though. She dropped to the ground and put up a wall of vines to protect her. I summoned Mori, my sword, and activated its rune. A slash of air whipped towards the wall, leaving a gash and not doing anything to draw her out. I thought about using a spell to create some kind of trap around the wall and her, but wasn't able to because several vines had started wrapping themselves around my legs again. I was about to activate the runes again, but the vine suddenly went taut and I was pulled off my feet. I hit the ground and was dragged for several seconds before I tried activating the runes. This time, nothing happened. Well, I still got the healing and the stamina boost, but there was no explosion. I dropped Mori and Aigis when I was toppled, so I resummoned them and cut the vines with Mori. I stood up quickly and cast a spell that engulfed the wall of vines that had been protecting the lieutenant. I thought I had managed a miracle and won, until I was hit in the back 5 times and had my organs rattled. Ka-clang, ka-clang, clang. I fell to the ground, and the lieutenant landed next gracefully to my battered body. It felt like one of the scenes in an anime where somebody gets rocked hard and cough up a liter of blood. Ugh! I moaned painfully. She definitely broke one of my ribs with that last one. "Winner, Lieutenant Datahu," the captain announced. Yep, that's about right, I thought. "Good job, Sentinel, and thank you for the bout. I will be sure to put in your memory delving request," she said. "No problem. Thanks," was all I was able to strain out. She flew away, and I activated my armor's healing rune. End of chapter. Chapter 14. Jake's point of view. "Winner, Lieutenant Datahu," the captain announced. The crowd started cheering and shouting praise at the lieutenant, while I laid in the dirt floor at the pit. Yep, that's about right, I thought. "Good job, Sentinel, and thank you for the bout. I will be sure to put in your memory diving request," she said. "No problem, thanks," was all I was able to strain out. She flew away, and I activated my armor's heating rune. Suma landed beside me after a few seconds, and I finally managed to gather enough strength to sit on my knees instead of laying down. "Well," she said sympathetically, "at least you didn't die." I was pretty sure that she was teasing me, but it felt kind of touch and go at times during the fight. "Yeah, and she agreed to put in the request, so, that's good," I said, checking my rib. They had healed, so I stood. Ro and Odin flew down and landed beside Suma. "I lost 2 Gremlin seeds on that fight, Jake," Ro said as he shook his head sadly. I don't think he was really that worried about it, though. "I made 2, Odin added, laughing. "Your confidence in me is overwhelming," I said sarcastically. "Don't take it the wrong way," Odin said. "I probably couldn't beat you in a bout, but you were fighting the lieutenant. That match was decided before you ever even showed up." "Well, she was a court mage after all," Ro added. "Our court mage is really that impressive. I mean, I lost, yeah. But was it really that obvious what was going to happen?" I asked, confused. "Yes, Jake," Suma said plainly. "That is why I asked if you had any sort of special plan before you started." "What makes him so special? I got my butt kicked, sure, but why was everyone so certain I would lose?" I asked. I mean, even I knew I was, but why? I had been hearing people talk about court mages and royal mages for over a year now, and they were always words of praise. But I've never ever heard a single description, as far as I could remember, other than that they were extremely strong and skilled. Well, to start, court mages have battlefield experience, so right away that should tell you something, Rose said. And they are all chosen from the best of the high mages, Odin's added. Yeah, that's the ranking system all mages fall into, right? Suma mentioned something about that, I asked. Yes, even achieving high mage status is a feat in itself, so becoming a court mage is a rare event, Suma said. As you know, I am a medium class. I think most people here are, although I heard there are 1 or 2 high-class mages in the second squad, Odin said. What does someone have to do to go up in rank? I asked. Perform well on the battlefield, that is the main qualifying factor, Suma said. But there are a set of trials as well. I do not know what they are, however. I heard you had to slay a lesser dragon single-handedly, Rose said. No one knows, though. It's a very well-kept secret, Odin said. No one knows much about the court mages, and rumors are all most people have to go on, huh? I guess that explains why people are so quick to pretty much mythologize them, I thought. Well, all that aside, you did well in your match, Jake, Suma complimented. They all talked a bit more about stories they'd heard about court mages, and they told me a legend of some of the famous court mages who fought the Vikings. After that, Ro and Odin's left, and Suma sent me home for the day. Good thing, too. After all that healing, I was exhausted. I plopped down on my bed and texted my mum that I was home safe, then went to sleep. There wasn't anything left to do now, except wait to see if we got approved for the memory delve. Honestly, things have been going fairly smoothly for the past few days. I should have known something was going to happen. Familiar Zachariah, you have been brought before the Royal Council to explain the events of your actions that occurred during the Battle of Dragon's Fall Bay. End of chapter. Chapter 15. Zachariah's point of view. Familiar Zachariah, you have been brought before the Royal Council to explain the events and your actions that occurred during the Battle of Dragon's Fall Bay. And here I was thinking that I was here just because you lot missed me so much, I said. Yeah, as impudent as ever, I see. Himpack, one of the generals of the Royal Army, spat. He was a disciplined and annoying little bird. Actually, I think I may be getting better at it. It must be all the practice, I replied. Enough bickering. We have more important matters to deal with within your tiresome back and forth, one of the council members interrupted. Indeed, General, we need to get back to punishing this man who won the battle, I said. Your actions are no laughing matter, familiar Zachariah. You have committed several heinous acts and used the magic we ordered you to never use again, another of the council members shouted. If I hadn't, then you would have lost the battle, and the lives of every soldier present. My actions were not only necessary, they were justified, I said. So you admit that using the forbidden magic then? General Himpack asked. I did, but as I said, it was necessary. We will be the judges of that, the council member who had shouted earlier scoffed. Familiar Zachariah, we want you to start with the events that led up to the battle, and then explain how you came to the conclusion that your actions were justified. The head of the council, Bardic Sopra, said calmly. He was a reserved man who very rarely showed his feelings or spoke without thinking. We had met on several occasions, usually during trials such as this one. For me, it started when I was ordered to Dragon's Fall Bay to reinforce the defenses against the invasion. Perhaps start a little closer to the actual events in question, General Himpack said, sounding a bit irritated. Fine. I had received word that the battle had begun and that the front needed reinforcements. Amboss and I decided to volunteer to assist. And where is Sir Amboss today? I expected him to be here with you, Bardic Sopra asked. He had personal matters that needed attending, so he was unable to join us at this time, I explained. I see. Well, his presence is not necessarily needed in this meeting, but it is not a matter that bears worry. Please continue. The enemy had flown from their ships to the shore and were beating down our fortifications. Amboss and I decided that the best course of action was to attack the ships themselves. They were striking and retreating to the safety of their ships to rest and recuperate. So we reasoned that destroying their ships would force them to land on shore, where our defenses were strongest and could deal with them better, I said. A wise strategy. How did that play out? It went well at first, but they broke our lines a few hours later. So in the end, all it did was buy us time.
How exactly did you defeat 37 transport ships? Each has enough supplies to transport over 1,000 Yama. They are effectively floating fortresses, one of the council members asked. We deemed it was impossible to attack them from above or behind, so we didn't. Amboss cast a spell that allowed us to travel under the water while I sank their ships with a rot spell. And that was when you used your death magic? Sopra asked. That is correct. And was that the only time in the battle that you used it? No. I also used it later in the battle. Please, tell us about that instance. I took a deep breath and began. 4 hours after casting the spell, all the ships had finally sunk, and the soldiers were still residing on them had landed on the shore. My plan was going as expected, and the defenses were dealing with them accordingly. However, some of the soldiers were apparently able to overcome the defenses and capture a strategic point. This allowed them to push back and start gaining ground. As I spoke, I noticed several of the council members were whispering amongst themselves, clearly unhappy about something. One of them flew over to the head of the council, Bardic Sopra, and whispered something to him. He simply nodded, apologized for the interruption, and asked me to continue. A tactical retreat was ordered from the front to regroup and reorganize. Myself, Amboss, and around 100 other soldiers stayed behind to cover the retreat. And that was when you used your death magic again? One of the council members asked. Yes. Why? As the battle raged, the 100 slowly started to dwindle. Soon there was only 70, then 50. By the time I realized what was happening, only 25 of us remained. We needed reinforcements, but I knew we were not going to get any. So I cast the spell that brought the survivors time to fall back. The spell? It was a famine type, correct? Bardic Sopra asked. Yes. What was its effects? It caused approaching soldiers to become weak with hunger. Once they crossed the threshold I had designated during the spell's casting, it would take effect. That spell saved the lives of the remaining 25. So you did use the lethal form of forbidden magic? The council member who shouted earlier shouted again, as if he had caught me in some kind of trap. No, the spell itself was not lethal, I denied. Then the soldiers who were affected by the spell lived? Sopra asked. No, most of them died, I said. Can you explain the contradiction? He asked, confused. The spell itself wasn't what killed them. It was most likely the fall. Fall? Well, most of them were flying when they crossed the threshold. The ones that were atop their familiars may have survived, but they would have fallen off their familiars when the weakness took hold. I speak from experience. Being trampled by a familiar is not something one has a great chance of surviving, I explained. The council members all started grumbling to themselves again, looking quite upset. He admits it. He used a forbidden magic and used it in a way that we specifically instructed him not to. I followed your instructions to the letter. I did not cast any spell that took the lives of Anyama in any way considered vile, I declared. You just admitted to killing those Nyama with... The council member yelled, but was cut off by Bardic Sopra. Enough, Zachariah. The council needs to consider what you have told us. Until the decision has been made, please return home and await our next summons. With that, I was escorted out of the council's meeting room by several Nyama guards. I contacted Amboss and told him what happened. He summoned me, and I reappeared next to him in our home. Did you finish? I asked. I did. Ashim is uneasy about something, but he wouldn't tell me about what, Amboss said. What can make a dragon nervous? I asked. Very few things, and all of them are bad. And he didn't want any help dealing with it? No. He said it was a private matter between the dragons, Amboss said. Any idea of what it could be? I asked. If I had to guess, I'd imagine it's Deja. Yes, the strange one, as far as dragons go anyway, I agreed. But nonetheless, if he doesn't want our help, there is nothing we can do, Amboss said dejectedly. He was close friends with Ashim, and has known him longer than anyone. He feels he owes him a great debt, as not being able to help him probably hurts. Jake,
I'm sure he'll call on you if he needs any help, I told Ambos.
Jake!
Ambos nodded, but still seemed sad.
Jake!
End of chapter. Chapter 16. Jake's point of view.
Jake!
I was startled awake. I looked around, but no one was there. Hello, I called out. No one answered. Suma, I asked, activating our private connection.
Jake, thank the dragons. I've been trying over and over again to summon you, but it wasn't working,
Suma shouted. You have?
Yes. Are you okay?
I'm fine. I was asleep, or no. I was having one of those vision/dream things again.
I'm going to try summoning you again,
Suma said. Wait, I shouted, and dove off my bed to get some trousers. Luckily, I'd fallen asleep too tired to take off my pajama shirt, but I still needed shoes and stuff. I had just enough time to put on my hands on my pants and a pair of shoes before disappearing. When I reappeared, I was in an uncomfortable position. My arms and legs splayed out, each one connected to some separate article of clothing.
Oh, sorry. I suppose I should have waited a tad longer, Suma apologized.
Well, at least I was already wearing socks, a shirt and pants. I stood up, collected the strode about clothes, and got dressed. It's fine, I said.
So, what was the vision about this time?
A voice came from behind me, asked. I turned and saw Lieutenant Data, who... Oh, Lieutenant, I didn't see you, I said.
She was able to secure a memory delve faster than expected. That is why I was trying to summon you, Silver explained.
Yes,
the Major wants you to battle ready as soon as possible, so he pushed the request through for me, the Lieutenant said.
Oh, good. Please tell him I said thanks.
You will be able to tell him yourself. He's going to be present during the delve. He is? Suma asked. He wants to make sure his investment pays off.
That's a nice way of putting it, I thought to myself. I may not be the smartest guy around, but even I knew that why he wanted to come.
So, who will be performing the delve? Is it one of the base's staff members? Suma asked. No, actually. I was told I was going to be one of the major advisors who specializes in memory magic.
What about everything you said about proper procedures and following protocol when we first asked you? I asked.
The privilege of the highest is that they can glide the farthest, the Lieutenant said.
Suma's feathers ruffled a bit, and her sparkle dimmed for a second. I guess she wasn't happy to hear that for some reason. What's wrong? I asked her over our private connection.
I dislike the idea of one of the Major's closest allies going through your memories, she said, worried.
Why?
I'm concerned about what else they will be looking for while they are inside our minds.
Is there anything we can do? I asked.
No. One way or another, someone will have to perform the delve, and they will most likely report what they find to the Major for him to do what he pleases. I dislike the reality of the situation, but we need the delve, so there is nothing we can do.
Suma sounded dejected, but didn't suggest calling off the delve. I can't say I'm in love with the idea of someone poking around inside my head, but I'm also getting kind of tired of hallucinating someone else's knife.
As am I,
she replied. Do you two have the ability to communicate without speaking aloud? Lieutenant Datu asked, snapping us out of our private conversation. Yeah?
Should I be insulted or impressed? She asked. We were discussing the thought about the delve being performed by one of the Major's advisors, Suma explained. Well, I get the feeling that you'll not have much luck trying to find someone else to do it, the Lieutenant said.
Meaning he wants inside my head and he'll throw his weight around to make sure it happens, I said.
I see. You're probably right. The Major is a good man, but he did not reach such a high perch by letting opportunities fly past him, the Lieutenant said.
The conversation probably would have continued, but the sounds of flapping stopped us. Seconds later, the Major and 3 others landed on vines nearby. The setup for the delve was the same as it was back when I was interviewed after killing the Vyram last year. 1 Niyama to cast the delving spell, 1 to ask questions, and 1 to monitor my well-being. They were only doing me at the moment, instead of doing both Suma and me at the same time. I guess they only had one of those memory seekers available. Sentinel, please lay down, the Major said as a bed of vines formed about knee-height. Am I going to be put to sleep? They didn't do that last time, I said, lying down. No, but it'll be easier for us this way, and less dangerous.
Less dangerous?
Well, if you do lose consciousness, you could fall. Also, this situation is rather unique. Memory delves have never been used in this way before, he said. Please don't fry my brain, I thought to myself. All right, I am ready, the Niyama who'd cast the magic circle around me and who's going to be doing the delve for us said. Yeah, me too, I said. Then, let us begin. Suma's point of view. Sentinel, I want you to think about the first time you saw this, figure in flame. The Niammer in charge of guiding Jake through the questions said. The Major, Lieutenant Datto, and myself were all perched near Jake, watching the delve. I was at, that church, Jake said. Church? The interviewer asked. I think it was called the Sanctum or something. Suma and I were about to form our bonding ritual thing, and he came out of nowhere and demanded she give me a new name, Jake explained. Ah, yes, you mean the Grand Sanctum of Zack Ashton. Did he do anything else besides demanding a name? No, after that he left, Jake said. The interviewer looked over to the other two Niammer. They each nodded, and he continued the questions. Then when was your next encounter? A month or two later, I think. He was able to catch me in between being summoned. Can you explain what you mean? Suma summoned me so that we could name my weapons, but he interrupted it and pulled me somewhere, Jake said. Where? Do you know? It felt like a dream. I was floating in a void, and there was this light. I went to it, and it was him. What did he do this time? The interviewer asked. He, threatened me, and told me that we were friends. He really didn't make any sense that time, or any time. I don't know one mage in the modern era capable of interrupting a summoning, the Major whispered to the lieutenant. That is probably because none exist anymore, and haven't in several hundred years, she answered. Did you see the being again after that? The interviewer asked Jake, not minding the Major and Lieutenant's conversation. Yes. When? He interrupted the summons again, but going the other way this time. Sumo was sending me back home. We'd been exploring a cave during a training exercise for a training camp. It was too small for me, so she sent me back. And what did he do this time? He said, I was standing on his head. Do you know what he meant? We never figured it out, Jake said. The Major looked nervous and interrupted the delve with a question of his own. What exactly did he say? The Major sounded upset, concerned even. I thought maybe it had to do with the military matters, but the lieutenant looked as confused and surprised by his sudden outburst as the interviewer was. I don't remember exactly, just that I was standing on his head and that I'd never been closer, and then he suddenly said that I was far away. The Major did not look satisfied with Jake's answer, but he did not ask out any follow-up questions. And how many more times did you meet the figure after that? The interviewer asked. A few more, Jake said. And do any of them stand out to you? Yeah. There was only one time where he actually did anything to me. That's when all of this hallucination stuff started. Okay, let's go ahead and move to that instance. What can you tell me about what happened? It started off like any of the other ones. He said things that didn't make any sense, then said I was getting stronger, Jake said. What made this time different then? Did he hurt you in some way? Yeah. He did something, and my head felt like it was going to explode. Ah! One of the assistants started to scream. She collapsed to the floor, and the other two quickly flew over to her. Jake sat up and watched. What happened? Are you okay? The interviewer asked. It felt like I was watching thousands of memories all playing out at the same time, the assistant answered weakly. Yeah, that's what it felt like to me the first time too, Jake said. We had theorized that the figure had implanted memories into Jake, and that is what has been causing all of this, I said. Memory magic, being used to forcibly push memories into someone's mind. I've heard of things like that before, but it fell out of practice over 200 years ago. Lieutenant Datto whispered. The Major nodded his head. So, does that mean we need to stop? I asked. I can continue, the assistant, who had gotten back up, answered. This is what we came to do, the Major said. All right, then, the interviewer said hesitantly, and looked at his assistant after going back to his perch. Sentinel, I want you to focus on one of the memories that were placed into you. Which one? Jake asked. You mentioned you had already seen some of them play out. Try focusing on one of those. The first time it happened, I was buying food at a store. I saw a Niammer named Ambos, but I thought I was a guy named Zachariah. Ambos and Zachariah, you said. Can you tell me anything about them? The interviewer asked, surprised. I couldn't blame him. Everyone knows the name Ambos. We live in the country of Ambos, after all. Ambos likes raisins, and Zachariah was very sarcastic. Beyond that, not much. I know Zachariah killed a lot of Niammer in the war, and in some pretty violent ways, apparently. I also know that he was familiar to Amboss, just like I am to Suma.
Was he a Viking?
He may have been. He was the same species at least, but you can't tell just by looking, Jake answered. No, the Major asked. Could you tell what nation a Niemo was just by the color of the feathers? Jake asked, sounding a tad annoyed. The Major looked at the Lieutenant for a moment, then answered, I suppose that is a fair point. But you could tell that he was the same species, right? The Lieutenant asked. Yes, that I could tell. Anyway, Sentinel, the interviewer interrupted, a Viking familiar with a master named Amboss. This cannot be a coincidence. It is true, I said. I had a suspicion from the beginning, but it does confirm it. I'd really appreciate it if you guys started speaking in complete thoughts. Thanks, Jake complained. Sentinel, do you know of Amboss? The Major asked. A little. Only what Suma has told me, though. He was like some kind of hero mage who may or may not have slayed the Death Dragon. That Amboss. Yes, most likely. So, we think I have the hero's familiar memories in my head? Jake asked.
No. When someone implants their memories into another person in that way that the figure of flame did, it doesn't just put their memories into them, their thoughts, emotions, worries, or even their desires. It puts a piece of them into you as well, the Lieutenant said.
What do you mean?
I asked. Memory magic has never been my specialty, so I was fairly lost as well.
There were thousands of memories overlapping one another, and then he actually believed himself to be Zachariah. That isn't just memory magic. That is more like soul magic, the assistant said. Sentinel, I think that figure of flame put a piece of himself into you, the interviewer said. But there was Zachariah's memories, Jake said, still confused. The lieutenant nodded her head. Yes, which probably means that the figure was Zachariah himself. End of chapter. Lieutenant Datahu's point of view. An unwelcome revelation. That's how I would describe it. Not just for Suma and her familiar, Sentinel, but for the kingdom of Amboss as a whole. Zachariah, an actual Viking, and the familiar of the mage who founded our country, still lives. Not only that, though, he has somehow transcended his mortality and gained unknown powers that allow him to cast spells that have been unavailable to him. He was a chaos mage, but by implanting his memories and even a portion of his own soul, he has demonstrated the ability to use both order and chaos magic alike. What is your assessment, Datahu? The Major asked. We were perched in his private quarters, talking about Sentinel and the newly revealed Zachariah. It was night, so we had a fire spell active to see. It didn't illuminate the whole room, but we could see each other well enough. An added bonus was that the fire kept the night's cold air at bay as well. On which, sir? I replied. Either, both. Regarding this Zachariah, I don't know enough yet. From what I do know, I would say it doesn't make sense. Agreed. How can someone use both order and chaos magic? It should be impossible. Even among the dragons, using both in a single individual would seem impossible, he said, agitated. At least according to the stories, anyway, I pointed out. What are you suggesting? Perhaps we were wrong, or perhaps the truth was lost to time. The dragons have been gone for centuries, and the Death Dragon has been gone even longer. Over time, stories get retold, twisted, even forgotten. So our history may not have happened like we believed. It is possible, he said softly, and nodded his head. Do you have any theories? None, sir. What of Sentinel? The fight against him went well for you. Do you have an assessment of him? I do. I would like to hear it. In my opinion, Sentinel may be the most dangerous threat this world has faced in 1,000 years. Really? But you won the fight. He sounded surprised. In reality, he was the one who actually requested the fight. When Sentinel first arrived at the base, the Major told me to find an opportunity to have a bout with him. He wanted to know how strong he was, and if he could be defeated. I did win, but I believe it was mere circumstance or luck, I said. How so? A bout is not an effective method of judging an opponent's strength. Sentinel was bound by several rules and regulations that prevented him from utilizing his most dangerous spells. As were you, the Major pointed out. Yes, but I also have decades of experience and was raised from birth to be a mage. Sentinel had none of that. So you are saying you think that in a real fight that he could beat you? The Major asked. I'm saying that I would pray to the dragons that Sentinel would not want to fight me. Why? Because I would never even see him. Are you referring to the events of the entrance exam? During the exam, Sentinel had used a spell he had only seen once.
and with such force that it nearly killed everyone present, despite it being a long-range spell, which we are typically weaker. I am. But not only that, during our fight, Sentinel launched several attacks at me, one of which was a purple ball of flames. Yes, I saw that. It was harrowing, like watching a bad dream suddenly become reality, or a monster in a child's tale take from in front of me. That was one of the most powerful attacks that has ever been directed at me. It took everything I had to redirect it. After that, flying caused me incredible pain. I tore several muscles in my wings, and was forced to fight from the ground until I was able to cast a healing spell, I explained. Was it truly that strong? I'm fully convinced that if it had connected with me, I would have died. The same is true for all the Sentinel's attacks during our bouts. Even an attack generated by simple ruin knocked me out of the air as if it was nothing. For him, it was a simple bout, but I was fighting to stay alive. I'll be sure to have a talk with Sentinel. He was supposed to be holding back during the bout, the Major said, standing a bit upset. He was holding back, sir. The spells he used were all scaled-down versions of spells I have seen him use several times during training, and according to reports from several of his squad members from his tenure at boot camp, he has produced spells even larger than the ones he has displayed here. So you believe that you would lose to his overwhelming strength? I do. But if it were an up-close fight, I believe I would stand a chance. However, as previously stated, I doubt that I would get the other opportunity. His long-ranged attacks, the Major said. His specialty, I said, but not his only attribute. His chaos magic, the Major said, with his concern showing clearly, and his physical strength. I landed several solid attacks to his back, and held back, of course, but even with that, I would have still expected to have seen more damage. Those metal goblins of his are truly formidable, and I can only imagine how much they weigh, yet he's able to move around surprisingly quickly while wearing them, I said. I'd heard that he was quite slow, the Major said. His traveling speed is atrocious, but his combat movement speed is a bit faster. He is still rather sluggish, but I wonder how much faster he would be if he were not wearing those garments. And all of this is why you believe him to be so dangerous. The ability to deal massive attacks from beyond our striking range, a constitution able to withstand the attacks of an average mage, and access to magic so dangerous that it is illegal in almost every country on Atmosia. Yes, sir. Sentinel is dangerous. What is your recommendation, Datahu? The Major asked. We take advantage of his one weakness, which is his master, Suma. Sentinel will continue to follow the orders of his master, so as long as we maintain a good relationship with her, Sentinel will remain our ally. Jake's point of view. I was at home in my apartment, lying in bed. In my hands was all the magic I was able to muster while still on Earth. A single navy blue orb about the size of a golf ball. Over a year of training and practice, and this was all I was able to create outside of Suma's world. If I switched to a new method of using my own internal mana instead of mana I collected from the environment, then the orb turns purple and gets smaller. Coincidentally, about the size of a grape. If I try to summon any of my weapons or my armor, nothing happens, but I do get a feeling that I'm getting close sometimes. I let the orb dissipate and pulled out my phone from my pocket to call my mum. Hello, she answers. Hey, Mum, just calling to let you know I'm home now, I said. My, you stayed rather late tonight, didn't you? Yeah, sorry for not telling you, but we met with a specialist to figure out what has been going on with me. A specialist? Did they find out anything? Yeah, Mum, they did. Apparently their faming figure guy was the cause, I said. Did they know what he did? Yeah. He shoved a bunch of memories into my head, and a piece of his soul, too. You know, Jake, I've heard you say some pretty strange things in the last few months, but I think that may have been right up there with when you told me that you worked for a bird, my mum said, in a unique mix of dry sarcasm and motherly concern. Do they know how to fix it? Not yet, but they said the portion of his soul he put into me might simply go away on its own. Oh, okay. Does that mean he'll die? She asked. I asked the same thing, but apparently no. Then what will happen to him? They don't know. They haven't ever seen something like this before. Apparently it used to be a fairly well-known thing, but it stopped being used a long time ago, I explained. Our conversations have gotten a lot stranger than they used to be, haven't they? Mum pointed out. I laughed a little and agreed. I explained a bit more about what happened and the results of Suma's doll. Since she hadn't had a severe reaction to the memories, they figured that what she experienced was most likely a kind of overflow from me. After spending a little while talking, we hung up. It was about 8 o'clock right now, and I was starving. I made a sandwich and sat on my couch to watch some TV. I expected to have a quiet night at home, but maybe that was hoping for too much. Because a few moments after I finished my sandwich, there was a knocking at my door. I got up to see who it was. "Hello," I said through the closed door. "Are you Mr. Jake Vandal?" The voice outside said. It was a man's voice. I looked through the peephole and saw two people in officers' uniforms. "We are with the HMRC, Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs. We need to have a word with you, sir." End of chapter. Chapter 18. Jake's Point of View. I was sitting at the cold metal table in an interrogation room. In front of me were two officers. One was from the HMRC, and the other was a police officer from my city. Apparently, they wanted to talk with me about some abnormalities in my personal banking account. I can't say I blamed them. If I was a banker and over £100,000 suddenly appeared in a person's account out of the blue, I'd notice and call the HMRC too. "So, where did you get the money?" The HMRC officer, his name was Detective Harwood, asked. "If this is about my taxes, I was pretty sure I filed them correctly. If there was any mistakes, I'm happy to pay the difference," I said nervously. I have fought Virums, experienced mages, and corrupt nobles, but this was still making me sweat. "Struck's right. Nobody happens to find £100,000 in the dirt outside. Just tell us who you were selling to, and you might get off easy," the local officer said, and I think she said her name was Detective Lynn. No, I'm not selling drugs," I denied. "Then how do you explain the money? Did little birdie just give it to you on your front door?" Detective Harwood asked. I admit, for a second I panicked. He was closer than he realized after all. My brain kind of went blank for a second as I just sat there with a dumb look on my face with my mouth open. I sold stuff, but not drugs, just like, legal stuff. Really? Because according to your credit card report, you spent over 300 quid on bulk purchases of paper in the last year, Detective Lynn said. "Yeah, I sold paper and stuff. I bought it in bulk and sold it," I said. "You bought paper and managed to sucker someone into giving you money for it. Just must have been charging £1,000 per sheet," Detective Harwood said. "Here's what we think. You bought a paper and made cash, literally." "You think I'm counterfeiting?" I asked, shocked. My stomach was in knots already, and this wasn't helping. I think I want to talk to a lawyer." "And do you realize how guilty that makes you look?" Detective Lynn said in a cold, calm way. "If you aren't doing anything illegal, why do you need a lawyer?" I suddenly remembered the advice my dad used to say when I first started driving. If you get arrested, no matter what happens, always ask for a duty solicitor. "I want to talk to the duty solicitor," I said. I wish I could have said that sounded confident, but my voice cracked halfway through. Fine," Detective Harwood said, and gave a follow-me head nod to Detective Lynn. They called the station's duty solicitor, and he came to talk with me. It took half an hour for him to arrive, though, and all the while I was stuck in the interrogation room that was at least 3 degrees too cold for humans to live in. Or maybe that was just the chills running down my spine. The duty solicitor was an overweight middle-aged man with dark brown skin and a bald head, and a charcoal grey suit. His name was Lawrence. As soon as he arrived, he started talking. He went over all my rights, asked if I needed to call anyone, and asked if I had a personal lawyer I needed or wanted to call. I called my mum and let her know what was happening and to call our lawyer. Then I had a long conversation with the duty solicitor. "Everything we say to each other is just between us. Nothing gets reported to the police," he said. "I didn't do anything," I said. "Okay, that's good. Can you explain to me what happened then?" Lawrence asked. "I can't. I'm not going to lie to you. That's not the great response. I really didn't commit any crimes, at least. I don't think I did." "So why can't you explain?" "'Cause, I get put into a mental institution. Also, no one would believe me," I said, sighing. "Do you think you should be put into a mental institution?" Lauren asked. "No," I said, after thinking about it for a second. He didn't look convinced, but moved on anyway. "If it isn't illegal, why did the police think you committed a crime?" he asked. Lawrence interlocked his fingers and placed his elbows forward on the table. His hands and arms were now making a triangle in front of his body. "Because it looks illegal to an outside observer. I'm going to give you some professional legal advice, don't say that, whether it be in a court or to any of these officers. Yeah. So let me hear some context to what is going on. I know you can't explain in detail, but what about it generally?" "Generally?" I thought for a moment. "Yeah, I can do that. Basically, my friend Sumer and I started selling things to rich people and charging a lot of money for it. Well, that certainly is not illegal. Why paper? Lawrence asked. Because they wanted it. I really don't have any better reason than that. Okay. I should also note, I stopped doing these things a few months ago. I had to move, so I lost everyone who wanted to buy from me. And what crime are they accusing you of exactly? None of this sounds like enough reason to suspect you're breaking the law, he asked. They think I'm counterfeiting money. Because you bought and sold paper. I should probably say that I made over £100,000 doing this, I admitted. Okay, things are starting to make sense now. Lawrence leant back, taking his elbows off the table and dropping his hands to his sides. Do you have any proof that you made the money legally? I doubted. There was no paper trail, no receipts, and I was paid entirely in gold coins. As soon as I said the last part, I quickly added with a, but I can explain why. Lawrence looked at me for a second, probably questioning his life choices, and wondering how he got to this point. I felt his pain. I don't, gold coins? He asked. Yes. I still have some in my apartment, actually. All right. Do you happen to have a therapist? He asks. Ah, great. He thinks I'm crazy, I thought, but answered him anyway. I do. Great. I'd like to get her number, so if you could, as well as the emergency contact if you have one. I think he had his fill of me and wanted someone he thought was sane. I decided to go along with it, hoping that maybe Dr. Maxwell could convince him that I was sane at least. I gave him her number and my mum's number as well. After that, he left the room to make the calls. About 10 minutes later, Lawrence came back in. She says that you are mentally stable, but that you occasionally have hallucinations. I told her about everything in my last appointment. She knew everything already after that. Your mother is on her way with your family, lawyer. My legal advice to you, Mr. Vandal, is to do whatever your lawyer tells you to do, and to not answer any questions he doesn't talk to you about first. You may have an insanity defense, but your therapist claims that you're of sound mind. Personally, I'd switch therapists. That one doesn't seem to be very good. I can see why you'd think that, I said flatly, with my head in my hands. After that, Lawrence left. It only took an hour for my mum and Robert, our family lawyer, to arrive, as well as Dr. Maxwell, and put her on speaker. I had explained the situation to her before Robert arrived, so she knew to play along. After talking, we came up with a moderate plan of action. Basically, tell the truth, let Robert do the talking, and only speak when spoken to. After we came up with that plan, the officers came back, and they resumed the interrogation. Can you explain how you acquired the money in question? Detective Lynn asked. Legally through buying and selling merchandise to customers, I said. Robert had prepared me for a few of the questions they might ask, and said I should follow a basic script even if they didn't ask those questions exactly. According to our records, you have been unemployed for almost a year and a half now, Detective Howard pointed out. That is correct, I said, and looked over at Robert, who nodded slightly at me, letting me know I was still on script. So how can you explain the money? Howard asked. You'll find that my client's reported all of his profits from those transactions on his tax reports, Robert interrupted. We weren't suggesting that Mr. Vandal was hiding his taxes, but rather the means by which the money itself was gained is being called into question, Detective Lynn said. I assure you, all of the money my client has was acquired legally. Absolutely, I stated. Right. And Mr. Vandal, can you tell us again how you were able to sell paper for over £100,000? Detective Howard asked. 100,000? Robert asked, shocked. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that, yeah. I apologized. Well, the price of merchandise is meaningless. The point is that it was all acquired legally, Robert said, stumbling over the first few words. Can you prove that? Detective Lynn asked. Can you prove that it wasn't? Robert asked. Detective Lynn and Harwood glanced at each other for a moment, then back at us. You have to admit it is ridiculous. My client does not have to admit anything. You have been accusing him of illegal actions without enough evidence, and he does not need to take such an affront. He came to this interview willingly and without any warrants, thus he is free to leave. Let's go, Jake. Robert started to stand up, but he was an older fella, so it wasn't a quick endeavor. With that, we left. Mum was waiting for us outside in the car park.
Jake, are you okay?
I'm fine, Mum, I said, and hugged her.
Thank you, Robert.
Mum said, and hugged him too. It's no problem, but, they're not just going to let this go. End of chapter. Chapter 19. Jake's point of view.
Wait, I may be confused. You were punished for what exactly?
Sue asked. It was morning now, and I had gone back to Atmosia pretty early in the morning to talk to Suma about what happened. I was sitting in a vine chair in our squad's room, and she was perched in a metal bar nearby. I wasn't punished. I was just questioned. But if they can prove I did something, which I didn't, then I will be arrested. They think I was money laundering, or hiding taxes maybe. Really, I was a bit lost during the whole thing, I explained.
Why do they not simply... Oh, right.
For a moment I forgot your people cannot do magic. Suma shook her head and ruffled her feathers, like she was chastising herself for forgetting.
Jake, how do people in your world investigate crimes without memory magic? Do you people often get punished for crimes they did not commit?
Sometimes, but it isn't so all common where I live. On my world, we have people who are trained for years before they are allowed to become detectives. They learn how to tell when people are lying, how to find people when they are trying not to be found, and how to intercept evidence they find at crime scenes.
I suppose this bears consideration, but what do we do if you are arrested by your people? She asked.
I doubt that it will happen. I didn't actually commit any crimes, at least none that I know of. Hopefully this will blow over in a few days, I shrugged.
Are you not worried?
I'm terrified. I've never had something like this happen to me before. Well, except for the Noble thing last year, but nothing like this has happened to me on my world anyway.
But should we not have a plan, if only as a precaution?
Look, I really, I just want to think about it, okay? If something does happen, you can just summon me, and that'll be that, I sighed, feeling that churning in my stomach return.
I know that you do not, but we need to nonetheless.
Suma pressed the issue, ignoring my discomfort. My lawyer says that he can handle it, and that I should try and go about everything like normal enough for now.
Perhaps if we summoned one of your investigators you mentioned at Moshe, they would understand, Suma suggested.
I don't know. Maybe. I didn't think about that, but I'm worried about the larger repercussions.
Meaning?
I may have mentioned this before, but my country has a habit of, let's just say it's probably better if the governments of the world don't learn of that Moshe, I said.
Yes, I think you said something like that before. Anyway, if you cannot summon someone here, I suppose that means we have no choice but to leave it to your lawyer.
Lawyer?
Yes, that.
Does it Moshe not have people who memorize the law and represent others in court? I asked.
It may, but Amboss does not. If someone goes before a judge or council, they've already undergone several memory delves and interrogations. There is no way an innocent Niema would still be under investigation after all of that.
After our talk ended, Suma sent me back home so I could rest. I didn't sleep last night and was exhausted. I fell face first down on my bed with a thump and was out in just a few minutes. I didn't dream. Instead, it was like closing my eyes and opening them again. But a lot of time passed between it. I guess I was too stressed to dream. I woke up just in time to grab a snack before Suma summoned me for our daily training. Now that I was able to participate, I was getting a lot of good experience. After that was my magic classes. I'd been practicing my activation speed. I was standing in a room on a base. It was mostly made of grey stone, and the instructor who had been teaching me was perched on some vines about 2 meters away to my right. He was guiding me through magic activation exercises. You are doing much better now, Jake, he said. I would say that your activation speed is on the level of a standard Niema child. In truth, my spell activation speed is a lot faster, but I was learning a technique that merged my original style with what I learned at boot camp. It was supposed to help me maintain power while still being able to activate spells quickly. That's why I was so slow. I almost can't believe children can do it. It's taken me weeks just to get this far. It comes more natural for Niema, I suppose. Well, not every child will grow up to use magic regularly. We're all taught at least some. He raised his wings and cast a spell that formed a few targets from some of the vines scattered around the ground. Try using what you've learned and cast this nature spell. I nodded my head and started. Vines, I said, and the vines rose from the ground. I was imagining moving a cellular structure at first, but realized I was overthinking it and settled for just picturing them moving. Great, now use them to attack the target, he said. I imagined them moving like bullwhips, and one by one they cracked and popped, leaving huge gashes on them and the targets alike. How was that? I asked. It was great. You even used the lashing technique. Have you seen it done somewhere before? Yeah, kinda. Well, that is good. I was worried it would take a while to teach you that. He flew up and landed beside the now ripped targets to examine them. You have improved quite a bit since you first started. In the basics, at least. I always heard that the basics were the most important part. Indeed. Especially where magic is concerned. He stopped looking at the vines and turned to me. All in all, I would say that you're about 3 times as fast at activation as you used to be. So, I've gotten stronger. No, just faster. I might get scared if you got any stronger. He chuckled for a second. A spell's strength can come from improving the basics, but the amount of mana one possesses and uses has more to do with it. If you have gotten stronger over the last few weeks, it would not be by much. Oh, I said, nodding. But your magic control is far above what it was when we first met, so you should be proud of that. I'll admit, that made me smile a little. Now let's shift your training. You need to learn how to manipulate your mana with more precision. Is that different from my normal magic control training? I asked. Imagine it more like the next flutter in your flight. It is simply a higher level of what you have learned so far. Practicing it will give you greater control over your spell effects, as well as make you less likely to break runes or magic channels. All right, what do I need to do? We'll start with mana molding, similar to the exercises that you've been doing so far. But this time, I want you to do them on a smaller scale. He fluttered down onto the ground beside me. I will demonstrate. An aura of light green magic surrounded him, then slowly moved down to the tips of his feathers. After all of it was gathered, the magic started to slough off his wingtips like water floating around aimlessly in a spaceship. It bubbled up and twisted on itself like a snake until it finally calmed down into a ball. Then it began to shrink until it was no larger than a marble. Cool, I said, impressed. It was super neat to watch. I think I've done something like that before, but it didn't look nearly that intricate. That is not surprising. This training method was originally developed by children. Really? Well, that is one rumor. I've heard anyway. Apparently a few gifted children created the technique to help them with their magic classes many years ago. And some of the adults started doing it after the children improved by a remarkable amount and quite quickly. By kids for kids, huh? Good for them. Indeed. Anyway, it is your turn. My instructor said and returned to his perch, letting the magical marble dissipate. The first part was pretty straightforward, and was similar to the body enhancement spell I learned during boot camp from Zuma. Manipulating the magic afterwards was a bit harder. I managed to do it, but it took me way longer than my instructor. How was that? I asked, still concentrating on keeping the little marble still between my hands. Very good. Now just 100 more times. Can I ask you something? He nodded his head. I know you said that this could be useful for my runes and improving my control, but I feel like I have pretty good control of my spells already. Is there anything else it can do? Ah, so you feel like this practice technique may not be worth your time, then? He asked, sounding rather smug, like he knew something I didn't. I don't know. Maybe, I said, unsure. From what I've heard of your bout with the lieutenant, you nearly killed her several times because you lacked the necessary control, he said. 100 more times. Yes, sir. Suma's point of view. I see. So, Sentinel is under investigation. This is inconvenient, Lieutenant Tattoo said. Yes, ma'am. I was wondering, would it be possible to secure the room on base Jake was originally offered? I asked. So he wants to start living here, then? I have no issues with him getting his own room. He's rather large, after all. When did he come to this decision? She asked. Actually, ma'am, he does not know that I'm asking about this. I was simply wondering if it was possible. I plan to bring it up with him later, if you would be willing to accept, I explained. She stayed quiet for a moment, seeming in thought. Suma, I know your relationship with your familiar is a strange one compared to most, so I feel as though you should get his consent first. I certainly would not want one of my friends making major decisions for my life without my consultation, she pointed out. I know, and I will. I just wanted to know whether or not asking for it would be pointless. I feel fairly confident that I could convince him to live here full-time. In fact, until we joined the army, he spent most of his time in Emoja anyway.
I see. Well, if he accepts, I'll make sure the room is secure. But only if he accepts. He may be a familiar, but it is clear that he is no mindless servant or simple beast. She looked at me seriously for a moment, as if she had a question. Private Suma, Jake is quite powerful. Yes, ma'am, I acknowledged. Far more so than you, correct? Without a doubt. I nodded my head. Admittedly, it bothered me that Jake was so much stronger than I was, but I realized that my jealousness and envy was not due to his strength, but my annoyance with myself. I needed to get stronger, not to be better than Jake, but to be worthy of flying beside him. How were you able to... Actually, I do not want to know. If I do not know, then I can deny it. With that, Lieutenant Atahu assured me once again that so long as Jake agreed, then he would have a place to live on base. I left and contacted Jake just after his training classes. I summoned him to my room and decided to have the conversation with him then and there. End of chapter. Chapter 20. Jake's point of view. My mum's house door squeaked as I pushed it open with my butt. My hands were too full at the moment, so we just put a towel between the door and the frame to prevent it from closing all the way. We've been carrying boxes from my car for about 10 minutes now, while movers put most of my stuff into storage shed. The only things I'm taking in is what I use regularly, like my computer and clothes. Suma and I talked, and we decided that it would be best if I moved to Atmosha full-time for a while. At least until either the HMRC dropped their case against me, or until Suma and I left the Drake's training camp. At this point, I don't know which is more likely, but I doubt either will happen soon. Since I won't be living here full-time anymore, I decided to get rid of my apartment and legally move back in with Mum. She was fine with it since it was only a technicality, and I wouldn't be there often, only to check in with her every few days. She wasn't thrilled about the idea of me living in Atmosha, or the idea of me leaving Earth in general, I guess. But as long as I was being honest with her and keeping her in the loop, she supported me. Once every few days, I'll come back to check up on her and to visit, and she would keep me informed about what the HMRC were doing. I also decided to transfer the bulk of my savings to her, since I couldn't use it in Atmosha anyway. Besides, I still have plenty of dull jars full of mana and gold coins to spend there if I need anything. I set the last of the brown cardboard boxes in my room and sat on the couch to rest. Jake, Mum said from the kitchen, do you want any food before you go? The movers won't be done for another hour, so you have time. Her house was small and fairly old at this point, so I could hear her as clear as day through the thin walls. Sure, Mum. What do you want? I can go pick something up, I offered. I didn't bother yelling, but I did have to raise my voice a little. I have leftover casserole from yesterday. Does that sound good? It is sausage and rice, she said, still yelling. Sounds good, I answered from outside. I heard someone shout out a curse followed by the sounds of something heavy hitting the ground. I hope that didn't break, I mumbled to myself. I'm going to go check that, Mum. Be right back, I announced. I forced myself up from the couch and started outside. Okay, the food will be ready in a few minutes, she said. As I left, I heard the phone start to ring, and my mum answer it. I walked down to her porch and steps and saw one of the moving guy's left hands was covered in blood. Are you okay? I asked the guy. Ah, I gashed my hand, he responded. He was cradling his hand. There was blood on the ground and his arm. Something must have cut him pretty deep. We were carrying the bed frame, and I guess there was an exposed nail or something. Oh, that's going to need stitches, one of his co-workers told him, in one of the thickest Yorkshire accents I've ever heard. You might want to take him to the doctor. Don't worry about the rest of the stuff. You guys can finish it after, I said. I looked over at the bed frame. It seemed fine. If it was scratched up on the side that hit the ground, it was made of metal, so it was going to be fine. Thanks, I'll take him to the doctor, and call my boss and send someone else to finish, his co-worker said. With that, the co-worker wrapped a rag around the guy's bleeding hand, and they left. I was much stronger than I used to be, thanks to all the working out and then getting healed by Suma. So I dragged the bed frame up to the shed and closed it up until the replacements arrived. I walked back inside. Mum, one of the movers left to go get some stitches. He gashed his hand open on my bed frame. They're going to send some replacements in a little while. Jake, something happened, Mum said nervously. What? I asked. She looked really upset. Her face was white, like she was afraid. Robert called. He said that the HMRC have put out a warrant for your arrest. Her hands were starting to shake.
What? Why?
They think you're trying to flee the country, Mum said.
Why do they think? I started to ask, but then I realized I sold my apartment, gave my mum all my money, and nobody can ever really get a hold of me. Actually, never mind. I think I figured it out. Honestly, I was more surprised it took this long. Technically, they weren't wrong. I'm moving to Atmosia, but I didn't intend to sort all of this out, so... moral grey area?
He also said that you should turn yourself in to clear everything up,
Mum added. Okay, I'll go there right now and sort this out. I walked into my room and grabbed my keys and phone.
Do you want me to come?
Mum asked. Nah, but you can call Robert back and tell him to meet me at the police station. The drive to the police station felt longer than it actually was. I was nervous, of course, but not as much as I was that first time. This time, I know I didn't technically do anything wrong. At least, not that they could prove. I pulled into the car park and went inside. The station was busy. Busier than the last time. No one seemed to pay me any mind. Yeah, I guess they don't expect wanted men just to walk in, huh? I thought to myself. I walked up to the police officer sitting behind the screen. He was on his computer, but looked up once I got there. Hi, I'm Jake Vandal. I was told that I had a warrant placed out for my arrest. My lawyer said I should come and turn myself in to clear this up. Suma's point of view. The sky was clear above me, but I could see the storm clouds in the distance. If it were day, I could tell which way they were moving, but it was too dark at this time of night. The air was cold, too, which made flying harder. I was flying to my captain's quarters. He had sent a messenger with orders that I report to him immediately. I was being escorted by a messenger, a Nyama with even lighter blue feathers than my own, to the other side of the base. Once we got close, I saw it. From the air, it looked like just some stone outcropping. It blended into the landscape well. But the closer we got, the more I could tell there was molded stone. Its feathers were too smooth and precise to be natural. The messenger and I landed outside. The entrance was dug out in stone in such a way that you might miss it if you were flying or did not know where to look. It was too small for most familiars to get through, but that was most likely by design. A way to force mages to use up their mana resummoning their familiars and bide time as they did so. Captain Gigalis is waiting inside, the messenger said, and he flew away. I flew in and noticed it immediately got warmer. The captain was perched on a metal pole, reading planks that were leaning against the wall of his quarters. He must have heard my wings beating. He turned around and greeted me. Ah, Private Suma. Welcome. Thank you for coming so quickly. I landed on a vine perch near to him.
You're welcome, sir. May I ask why you summoned me so late at night?
My voice was tense. There cannot be very many good reasons to receive summons from a commanding officer after hours, but I could certainly think of several bad reasons. It is about your familiar sentinel.
Did he do something, sir? He's still rather unfamiliar with our culture. If he has done something wrong, I will accept full responsibility, I declared immediately. No, he's done nothing wrong. I breathed a sigh of relief. But that does not mean my reason for summoning you here is a happy one. That tense feeling returned. The captain used mana wrapping to bring one of the planks he was reading when I arrived closer. Private Suma, can you read? He asked. Only a little, sir. I chose mathematics as my required secondary education while at the academy. But everyone had to take at least one runic language class, I explained. I see. He turned the plank towards himself and began explaining what it was. This is a request form from the royal court, and it bears the king's seal. They are ordering you and your familiar sentinel to appear before them. They want to talk to you both about his origins and his magic. Are we in trouble of some kind, sir? I asked.
That may depend. I doubt you'll be punished, if that is your only concern. But you may still face hardships while you are in the capital.
The capital?
Did you think the royal court would come here? You will have to travel to the capital. You leave in 3 days. He placed the plank down where it was, leaning against the wall. I will warn you. They likely also wish to know more than the request has mentioned. They may even demand Jake demonstrate his death magic for them.
I understand. Thank you, Captain, I said.
Private Suma, while you are in the capital, try not to let them requisition you and your familiar.
I do not understand.
They may try to talk you into working directly for them. Do not listen to them. Neither you nor the Sentinel is ready for such things, no matter what those arrogant politicians may believe. He ruffled his feathers and seemed angry. If in a few years you choose to leave the Drakes and join them, then so be it. But I do not recommend you do so at this time. Neither of you have enough experience yet. You would end up as nothing more than pawns in their game.
I see. Thank you, sir. I'll inform Sentinel of this immediately.
Captain Gagalis dismissed me, and I flew back to my squad's barracks. As I flew, I looked back at the clouds in the distance, but it was still too dark to tell which way the storm was blowing.
Jake, are you awake?
I called out to Jake over the private mental link. Zuma, please don't summon me. Jake answered quickly. It startled me.
Why not?
I asked. I'm being arrested. If you do, everyone will see it.
But why are you being arrested? Did you commit a crime?
No, but I didn't think I was going to. I'll be let go soon. I just have to sort this out, he explained.
Okay, if you are sure, but I need to talk to you as soon as possible.
Is something wrong? He asked.
No, not exactly. I just received a summons. I will explain once you're free to talk.
End of chapter. Chapter 21. Detective Lynn's point of view. I can't believe he turned himself in, my partner, Detective Sergeant Grayson Harwood, said. Do you think we jumped the gun on the warrant for his arrest? No. Even if he isn't going to flee the country, it looked like he was. We made the right choice, I told him. Which interrogation room is he in? Room 2. At that moment, an officer named Matthew walked up carrying a stack of papers. Detective Lynn, here's the financial report on the Vandal case you wanted. Thank you, Matthew. Anything interesting in it? I asked. I bet you £5. It's mostly expenses for gym membership. I mean, did you see the guy? My partner joked. Actually, yeah. He does go to the gym, but that isn't the interesting part. When Matthew said that, Grayson was right. Grayson smirked like he had won something. The part you may want to take a look at is how often he has visited those gold for cash places, specifically the one closest to his house. He's been in over 37 times this year. We'll go talk to the shop owner when we get a chance. Thanks, Matthew, I said, and took the paperwork from him. No need. I already did, Matthew answered proudly. Are you shooting for a promotion, Matthew? Grayson asked. Well, I am taking the detective's test in a few weeks. I figured a little practice experience couldn't hurt, Matthew smiled. So, what did the shop owner say? I asked. Apparently Vandal has sold him more gold than anyone this year, and all of it was gold coins. But he stopped a few weeks or so ago, maybe a few months ago, Matthew said. Wasn't he in the hospital for a while not too long ago? Maybe he stumbled onto some kind of treasure and hurt himself getting it out. Grayson sat back in his chair and started to theorize. How long ago was the hospital visit and his last trip to the gold place? The hospital records were sealed. We're still waiting for the court order for them to be unsealed, I told him. The owner of the store says Vandal's last visit was about 3 to 5 months ago, but he couldn't remember exactly. I asked him to email me any paperwork he found about it, Matthew explained. Thanks. Let us know if anything comes up, I said. Sure. See you later. I gotta get back to patrols, Matthew said, and walked away. So, do we think he's trying to flee the country? Grayson wondered aloud. I don't know, but here's a better question. Where did he get all that gold? I said. Why don't we go ask him then? Grayson stood up and collected several documents before putting them onto his desk. So, do you want to question him or me? We started walking to where Vandal was, and I told him, You can do it. I want to watch. A minute later, Grayson was in the interrogation room with Vandal, and I was in the observation room next door, watching everything through one-way glass. Vandal and his lawyer were sitting on his metal table, handcuffed and looking bored when Grayson walked into the room. Jake Vandal, so tell me, why turn yourself in? Grayson asked. Because I didn't do anything. I just came here to clean up this mess, Vandal said. My client has done nothing illegal, and yet you issued a warrant against him without proper cause. I don't know about that. You left your flat, emptied out your bank account, and changed your legal residence to your mother's house. You were planning on going on the run, weren't you? Vandal's lawyer side-eyed him, like he was hearing this all for the first time. No, that's why I came in. I wasn't going to do anything, Vandal denied. So why move? Why get rid of all your money? But because I only put the money into my mum's account, and I moved in with her because my dad died, and she's been really lonely. Plus, with all the legal trouble and my health, it just made sense, Vandal said. But he stumbled over his words, like he was trying to think. He was lying, and he wasn't very good at it. Maybe you answer a few more questions then. Where did you get all the gold coins from? Grayson asked. Vandal looked shocked, like we had caught onto something he didn't think that we would know about. I just, he stuttered. That's enough, Jake. You don't have to answer any more of these questions. My client complied with an unjust warrant and turned himself in to the police to clear up this confusion. Now that you have seen that he has no intention of breaking the law, we demand that he be released immediately. The lawyer interrupted. Grayson was silent. He and I both knew that we don't have enough to hold him, not since he turned himself in willingly. No jury would be on our side for this. I texted Grayson to end it for now. His phone buzzed and he looked at it. Fine, I'll go get the paperwork ready. Would you please follow me, sir? Grayson said to the lawyer. They got up and left, Vandal alone in the room. I stood there watching. Suma, you there? I'm about to leave the station. He was talking to someone who wasn't there. I wondered if he had a phone on him and we didn't know about. No, wait, not yet. He started yelling. I didn't know what to think, what to do. I couldn't believe my eyes because right in front of them, Vandal disappeared. I didn't know what to think, what to do. I just stood there like a knot in a log, just trying to figure out what was just happened. I was going to call Grayson, tell him that Vandal escaped or something. But just a few seconds later, he reappeared. He quickly glanced around the room and sighed when he didn't see anyone. Okay, no one saw. I think we're good. Just tell me what you wanted to like this, he said. There was a few minutes of pause, like he was listening to a response. Okay, and what does that mean? Another pause. He was definitely talking to someone. The king, huh? Okay. Is that good or bad? Oh yeah, I guess they would want to see it. His conversation continued for another 3 minutes, and Grayson and his lawyer came in about 15 minutes after that and to let him go. I watched him walk out the door, looking uneasy. He got bad news, I think. I wonder which of the two of us looked more freaked out in that moment. End of chapter. Part 22. Jake's point of view. I sighed and signed some release paperwork from the precinct, which meant that I was finally able to be let out from holding. I'm sorry this happened to you, Jake, Robert, my family's lawyer, said and handed me my stuff. The officers had confiscated everything I had when they arrested me. It's annoying, but at least it's over, I said, and slid my jacket back on. It was absolutely freezing inside the cells, and they wouldn't give me any blankets because they didn't have enough to go around. I guarantee you I'll make sure that the officers who put that warrant out will face the proper punishment, Robert said as he left the building. Thanks, Robert, but honestly, it may be more trouble than it's worth. I kind of get why they thought I was going to flee the country. I mean, I would have put a warrant out for my arrest if I was in their shoes, I told him. Yeah, but you may be able to get compensation if we do file charges, he said. I was going to ask how much, but decided against it. No, don't worry about it. Besides, I make plenty of money. He looked upset and shook his head. Yeah, about that. We arrived in my car and stopped. If I'm going to defend you, I need to know where you get so much money, despite losing your job nearly a year and a half ago. I sell paper now, and other stuff, I told him. He took a deep breath and held it for a moment. Drugs? No, I don't sell drugs, he sighed, relieved. Then what? It must be something expensive to make so much money. I smiled and decided to tell him the truth. It's not like he would believe it anyway. I sell sheets of paper, and what is essentially a portion of my life falls to birds, and they pay me in gold coins. Jake, please take this seriously, he frowned, not finding it funny. I, on the other hand, was barely keeping it together. It was the first time I'd ever told anyone what I was actually did, without leaving out any details, and it just sounded so stupid. I was snickering as I rolled my eyes, probably thinking that I was having a laugh at my own joke. So it is some new age stuff then, like healing crystals or something? You could say that, yeah, but everything is totally legal, and I reported it all in my taxes, I said. Yeah, I know, that's good. This whole situation would have been way worse if you hadn't. He pushed his glasses up and pinched the bridge of his nose. All right, just, can you bring me some of the stuff you sell so I can keep it, in case the police come with a warrant for it, and you drop off the face of the earth again? That'll be a bit more difficult, I said suddenly, no longer laughing. I could get him some paper, no problem, but I couldn't exactly hand him a doll jar full of mana. Why? You said it wasn't drugs. It isn't. But it is hard to explain, plus, it is pretty well-guarded secret. Look, I can't force you, but they're going to get a warrant for it eventually. I'm just trying to get ahead of it. I groaned. He was right. I hadn't even considered that they would want proof of transactions. They may already be on the process of it right now, Robert said. A stiff breeze blew past us as a tie started to flap around on his shoulder. He grabbed it and put it under his blazer, then buttoned it up. I don't know what I'm going to do if they do that. I can't give them anything, I said. Well, they aren't going to give you much of a choice. Failure to comply with a warrant will get you right back in those cells, and I won't be able to get you out this time. He started to sound upset. All right. I'll think of something, I sighed. Something legal, obviously. Something that makes sense. I remained quiet on that. Great. With that, I got into my car and went home. It had only been a few hours, so I expected that maybe the moving job would be done. But they must have just arrived, because they had picked up the bed when I got there. Hey, you guys might be near the new movers, I greeted them. Yes, sir. Sorry about the delay. We got here just as fast as we could, one of the new men said. There were only 2, just like the last guys, but they were dressed in the same uniforms. It's no problem. Is that guy okay? He was bleeding a lot, I asked. Yeah, he's getting stitches. The other guy is still filling an accident report at the hospital. Okay, well, the shed should still be open, but if it isn't, just knock and I'll unlock it, I said, and headed inside. In the house, Mum was cooking something.
Oh, Jake, are you okay? Did everything go well?
She asked as soon as she saw me. She was carrying on a plate of sweets, which was still steaming. Yeah, everything went fine.
Why are you making biscuits? I asked. I decided to make the nice man outside some snacks, she explained.
I wasn't surprised. She once made a chocolate cake for a plumber that came to install a new shower a few years ago. My mum's answer for having company of any kind was always to feed them. Okay, do you want me to take it out to them? I offered.
Yes, please. That would be nice,
she said, and handed me the tray. I took it out to them, explained why she made it, that she does this for everyone, and asked if they wanted me to put it into the truck for them. They seemed surprised, but happy, and clicked their truck open with their key fob. I put the sweets away and went back inside to tell Mom what Suma had told me, that we needed to travel to go meet some royal council. Mum, I have some news, I said, walking back into the kitchen.
Did they not like the biscuits?
She asked, worried. What? No, they liked them. It's not about that. She was at the sink, cleaning the dishes, and had gotten dirty when baking. What is it? She turned back to the sink and resumed cleaning. Suma told me that we received some kind of royal notice. We have to travel to see some kind of royal council, I explained.
Is that good?
She looked back at me, still wiping the dish with the rag. I don't know, but she sounded nervous. I grabbed a towel and started helping her dry the ones she'd already cleaned. So, not good then. Probably not, I sighed. But that's not all. Robert said the police are probably going to get a warrant to go through my financials, and they're going to want me to prove that I haven't broken any laws, and that all my money was acquired legally. If worse comes to worse, I can just stay with Suba for a while. I mean, it won't be great, and I'll definitely be a fugitive, but no. We'll figure this out. I don't want you to have to leave, Mum said. Her voice was breaking, and she stopped doing the dishes. I put the plate down and hugged her. I know, Mum. Mum and I talked for a while, but eventually I called Suma and told her I was ready to come back. A few minutes later, she said that she was about to summon me. I kissed Mum on the cheek and started to disappear. When my sight came back, I was standing in the room with Captain Gagullis had given me, holding a twin-size mattress I bought.
Ah, that explains why you were harder to summon this time,
Suma chirped, breathing heavy and looking tired.
Is that your bed?
Yeah. Can you help me make a frame for it? I asked, placing it on the ground.
A frame? What do you mean?
She made a perch using one of the vines on the floor. Once she did that, I made a mental note to clean some of the vines up, or at least organize them a bit so I didn't trip over them at night. My bed needs a few feet off the ground, I told her.
Oh yes, I remember you told me once that you sleep elevated off the floor.
I had a flashback to the one time that Suma summoned me from my bed, and I fell to the ground in front of her. That was probably what she was thinking about too. Yeah. Can you help me make the frame?
I can help you if you need it, but you can manipulate the vines as well as I can now. It should not be a difficult task for you anymore, she said.
Yeah, I just think it'll go faster is all.
Very well,
she said, and started molding several vines. Just do to your side what I do here. She nodded and copied me. It didn't take us long. I didn't need anything fancy after all, just 4 legs and a few supports.
Is that how you wanted it?
Yeah, this looks good. I looked around the room, making the frame use most of the vines in the room. So there was one problem solved at least. The rest of the room felt empty. It was almost entirely made of molded stone, so it had an unnatural smoothness to it. The only non-stone parts were the vines on the floor, and some vines that made up the makeshift door. Originally, I was supposed to use magic to open a hole in the stone wall, but when I tried to, I accidentally turned the stone into a different color. I spent the next 30 minutes explaining to the captain and the lieutenant the differences between metamorphic, igneous, and sedimentary rocks, and how I imagined them during the spell. They were interested in the spell and the explanation, but didn't want me to change the colors of the wall every time I got up to pee in the middle of the night. The vine door was added a day later. By the way, I told my mum about the council's summons, I said.
How was she?
Not happy. She's stressed about everything that has happened.
That seems reasonable. I'm rather surprised you're handling it so well.
Is that what it seems like? Because I'm not. I think at this point I'm just getting numb from it all. Or maybe it's just that I know that I have an out if I ever need it. Suma nodded. I guess she understood. Suma, I'm pretty tired. I think I'm going to go ahead and go to sleep.
I understand, Jake. Sleep well.
With that, she opened the vines and left. End of chapter. Chapter 23. Jake's point of view. Have you ever heard the sound a log makes when it explodes into splinters? It starts with a bit of a creaking, then shifts into a tear, and finally it cracks like a bolt of lightning. Of course, it all happens in a split second. So unless you hear it multiple times, you aren't going to notice all of this. Halfway through our day's training, I must have heard it 100 times.
You need to predict where the targets will be, not shoot where they are,
Lieutenant Datu told me after I missed another shot. Yeah, I wasn't the one making the logs explode. Most of that was Odin's. He was a crack shot, as it turned out. We were firing spells at wooden dummies flying around in the air, each moving around quickly and seemingly random. The dummies looked like bird-shaped dolls, but flew like real Nyama. Their wings were wood and had leaf-like feathers on their edges. Another of the dummies flew over our heads, and Lieutenant yelled for us to all fire. Some of them started their chants. Others, like Suma, simply fired off simple fire spells. She didn't need to chant on her Crimson Bolt spell anymore, and I launched several of my railgun balls at it. We all missed, even Odin's. We had been doing this same practice for 6 hours, but only 3 members of our team were still standing. It was me, Odin's, and Suma, and both of them were looking shaky. Rao and Nine had already collapsed. One of them has thrown up, but I didn't see which. Lieutenant Datahu ordered us to fire again as another dummy flew overhead. Odin's and I fired off our shots, but Suma fell over. She had managed to create a small flicker of flame, but it went out just as she collapsed too. She moaned. And that's another one down, the lieutenant said. You okay? I asked her over our private connection. She didn't answer. Lieutenant, I think Suma fainted. I shouted up to Lieutenant Datu, who was safely perched above and behind us on a metal support beam. She flew down and landed beside Suma just as I walked up next to her. I picked Suma up in my hands carefully and started following some of my mana into her. The first time this happened during training, I freaked out thinking she was hurt. But this was the 6th time now, so I knew what to do. She was overextended herself and used too much mana trying to keep up with us. I admire her perseverance, but not her foolishness. She's the team healer. She doesn't need to push herself this hard during battle exercises. A healer with no mana is one-way journey to the realm of the dragons for the rest of the team, Lieutenant Datu said.
What happened?
Suma groaned and asked when she started waking up. He passed out again, I told her. Don't use any healing for a while. I put my mana into you to wake you up. She nodded her head, but didn't move beyond that. Her wings hung over the sides of my cupped hands, and her head was leaning on my fingers. The lieutenant sighed. All right, team, training is over for today. If anyone needs healing, go to the base's healing staff. Besides from that, get some rest and replenish your mana. Dismissed. With that, the lieutenant flew off, leaving the team there. I felt fairly okay, a bit hungry, but fine otherwise. The rest of the team, however, they were all in a similar state, if not worse, as Suma. Odin's looked like he had just been kicked and was about to fall over. He was swaying side to side, breathing heavily, and with drooping eyes, Rao was splayed out on the floor, face down, but his eyes wide as if he had just seen a ghost. His breathing was ragged and fast. Who, after looking closer, I found was the one who threw up, was lying on his side. The one wing tucked in, and the other lying flat, like someone who had fallen asleep with the arm might pose. He was out cold, too, actually. Still holding Suma, I walked over to 9 and flowed some of my mana into him too. After a second, his eyes opened and he looked very confused.
Did I pass out? He asked.
Yeah, I said.
Am I dead?
Nah. But don't use any magic for a while, okay? I gave you some of my mana to help you wake up. You might kill someone or something, I told him. He just kind of groaned and laid his head back down before closing his eyes again. It took a while, but one by one they all woke up and were moving again, however reluctantly. I feel like I was mauled by a borag, Odin said.
Jake, is your mana supposed to make me feel tingly? Yes, Jake's mana does have that effect. It should pass once you get it out of your body completely, Suma answered well. It may also cause some feelings of nausea, so try not to fly too high.
I was already nauseated. I won't be able to tell. What am I? Antibiotics, I joked. No one laughed. Either they didn't get it, or they were all too tired. Yeah, that's probably why. Anyway, I need to go to my magic classes. How are you still moving, Jake? No, how do you still have mana? Odin's asked.
Jake's mana reserves are enormous. He'll be fine, Suma said. Have you ever had it measured?
Ro asked. Deja vu, I said quietly, feeling like I have this conversation before.
His life force is 500 Kalma and about 60 Dalma,
Suma said. There was a moment of silence. So, I'm gonna go, I said, and started walking away. How? What? Someone shouted, but I didn't look back. Good luck explaining that, I said to Suma over our private connection, and went to my classes. After I got to class, late by the way, thanks to having to help everyone recover, the instructor had me do control and precision exercises for over an hour to make up for it. Jake, the instructor said from his perch, as I was finishing the last of the session's training. I think this will be the last of our private sessions. Why? I asked, and stopped what I was doing. My mana dissipated into the air. You have as much control as the average Niema now, and you haven't made any more progress since reaching that point. No matter what method you use or what technique you learn, you can't seem to improve beyond this point. I think it may be due to the fact that you are not a Niema, or maybe it has more to do with the sheer amount of mana at your disposal. But I do not think your control will improve any more than it is now, he said. But I need to keep up with the rest of my team, I pointed out. I would argue that you are already as powerful, if not more so, than them, just due to your unique magic and raw power. I will inform your captain, lieutenant, and the major of your progress myself. I didn't know what to think or how to feel. A part of me was glad that I was done with the lessons, and that I had grown enough to not hold back my team. But I also wanted to keep them up, and learn as much as I could. Thank you, sir. Jake, it was truly a pleasure having you as a student. With that, my instructor spread his wings and bowed slightly before standing back up. After leaving the training room, I went to the team's quarters and told them the good news. I walked down the tall stone halls, the vines seemingly everywhere, and heard the sounds of laughter. I walked into the room and saw all the members of my team, each perched on vines or metal or even wood and stone pillars, talking.
Oh, hello, Jake,
Suma said when she saw me. One by one, the others all said hi to me as well.
How was your training?
It was good. Actually, yeah, he said I was done. Oh, he let you leave early. That's good, Odin said. No, I mean like, done. I don't need to attend them anymore.
Oh,
Suma said, surprised.
That is excellent. Congratulations, Jake.
Good work, Jake, Lion said. What will you do with your newfound free time? Ro, who has produced a bundle of vines and a few feet away from me, asked. I don't know. What do you guys normally do when I do class? I asked. We either eat, rest, or get medical attention, Ro joked. Odin chuckled.
He is joking, but he is not necessarily exaggerating, Suma said. Perhaps you could use your new free time to explore the base.
Yeah, really familiarize yourself with your surroundings, Ro said. Apparently puns existed across every world, and they are just as bad whether it comes from a human or a bird wizard. But jokes aside, Odin's interrupted, and Ro snickered at his own pun. It is a decent idea.
That will have to wait. We are leaving for the capital tomorrow,
Suma interjected. I sighed. I'd nearly forgotten. Right. Well then, maybe you should go to sleep early tonight. You'll be traveling for several days, correct? Nine asked. At least, Odin's answered. He was from the capital and made the journey himself when they first came to the base. It took me 4 days. Yeah, but Suma isn't as slow as us, Rose said. He and Odin's traveled together. They had known each other for a long time. That's true. Sumer is the fastest member of our team, excluding the lieutenant. How long will we be there? I asked.
I do not know, Sumer answered. It could be days or weeks. It'll depend on how long the royal court wishes to question us.
I shook my head. This was not going to be fun. End of chapter. Chapter 24. Jake POV. Sumer and I parted ways for a few days while she travelled, but I told her to summon me immediately if she needs anything. She's called me at least once a day, by our telepathic connection, to fill me in on where she is and what's happening. On the first day, she stopped at a small village. On the second, she and her travelling companions camped on a mountainside. She said that it would probably be another 2 days before she arrived. Right now, I was out doing errands for Mum, who was feeling under the weather today and couldn't do them herself. She had given me a list of things to do: get groceries, put gas in her car, take food donations to a local homeless shelter, and send off a package. I was about halfway done so far.
Did you get the groceries?
Mum asked. We were talking on the phone after I called to check on her. Not yet, but I dropped off the food at the shelter and put gas in the car already, I told her. How are you feeling?
Tired. Could you stop and pick me up some Benadryl?
Sure. Anything else? I asked.
No, that's all. Thank you.
The pharmacy wasn't far, just around the corner, so I stopped there next. It was a small neighborhood pharmacy, so street parking was non-existent. I walked 5 blocks from a nearby car park before arriving. I got what I needed, then got some of her favorite sweets while I was at it, then started walking back to Mum's car. I wasn't really watching where I was going, but out of the corner of my eyes as I turned a corner, I noticed someone familiar. It was one of the detectives who had put a warrant out for me last week. The female one, Detective Lynn. Upon deciding I didn't want to stop and catch up, I went out of my way to speed up at my pace and even crossed the street to avoid her. I glanced back after a minute, and she was still there, matching my pace. She was wearing a hood and trying to blend into the crowd, but I had already noticed her. After a minute, she crossed the street too. I started to panic, trying to work out if she was going to arrest me again. I stopped, deciding that it would be better if she caught up with me. Maybe she just has a few questions, I reasoned in my head, and then she did something scary. She stopped too. She even ducked behind a corner. Okay, she's following me, I thought. With that, I picked up my walking pace. Well, it was more of a sprint now. Cops don't follow you for good reasons. Why is she following me? And then I had a very scary thought. Does she know? I disappeared in that room. Is someone watching? Crap! I ducked into a back alley and hid behind 2 rubbish bins. I thanked my lucky stars that it had already been emptied. I thought about summoning Aegis or Mori or even Destiny, but realized I didn't want to get caught with illegal weapons by a police officer with a grudge. Realistically, she probably isn't going to try and hurt me, or else she would have done it by now. Who knows how long she was following me, I thought. A moment later, I heard footsteps approaching, then a voice.
Dang, did he see me? She said.
My heart was thumping in my ears, and sweat was pouring down my back. Instinctively, I clenched my hand together, half expecting there to be a hilt in it. I wasn't holding my breath, but it felt like I was. For a second, I worried I might give myself away by breathing too hard. I heard a phone start to ring, and my body clenched in surprise.
Hello,
the detective said, answering the phone. I'm just around the corner. I'll be there in a few minutes. Okay, see you then. After that, I heard the footsteps walking away. I stayed crouched behind those rubbish bins for another 10 minutes. Or, at least, that's how long it felt like, before checking to see if the coast was clear. Just in case she was waiting outside the alley, I decided to take the fire escape up the building, then went all the way to the top, and went around to the other side. I even had to summon what little mana I could muster to boost my strength and jump high enough to reach the fire escape's ladder. Once I was sure that I was safe and safely back on the street, I called my mum and told her to go stay with a friend tonight. When she asked why, I told her what happened, and she told me to call Robert and file a complaint with the police department. After I hung up on her, I started walking back to my car and called Robert, my lawyer.
Hello, this is Robert Watterson,
he answered. Robert, this is Jake Vandal. He sighed. What happened this time? A part of me cringed, because I knew I was probably his most troublesome client. I caught one of those detectives following me around. What did they want? I don't know. But when I stopped to let her catch up with me, she ducked behind a corner, and when I crossed the street, she started walking faster. She followed me again. She even followed me into an alleyway. I hid there until I was sure she was gone. Okay, do you have any proof? No. I don't. I shook my head. By now, I was about to arrive at my car. Without proof, we can't do much. The best we can do is file a complaint with the police for harassment. We may have a case for that, considering what happened with the warrant. Okay, how do we do that? Tomorrow at about noon, come to my office, and we'll drive there together and file the complaint. Okay, I'll be there, thanks. You're welcome, But Jake, if this is going to stick, we'll need proof. With that, I got into my mum's car and hung up. I drove home, gave Mum her medicine, apologized for not picking up the groceries or shipping the package, and then drove to a friend's house for the night. I slept at the friend's house too, on the couch. I didn't sleep well that night. I was too preoccupied thinking about what happened, what will happen, and what might happen. I think I only got about 5 hours sleep, so I was pretty tired. I even locked myself in the bathroom and asked Suma to summon me just so that I could get my energy back. The summoning process heals wounds and restores energy, so it helped me out a lot. Suma was in the forest somewhere, which was too bad, because I kinda wanted to see another Niema town that wasn't an army camp or base. Noon rolled around, and Mum, who was feeling better, dropped me off at home to get my own car. I drove to Robert's office. Jake, glad that you're here. Ready to go? Robert asked when I walked into his office. Yep, I nodded. We got into Robert's car, a black sedan, and drove to the police station together. It took about 10 minutes to get there, and while we drove, he explained what would most likely happen. They will question you. Filing complaints against a police officer is no small thing. So we'll be there for at least an hour, or maybe 2, I explained. Okay. And we probably won't get a chance to meet with the detective in question. You said it was Lynn, right? Yes. We're almost there. Are you ready? The police station was right in sight now. As I'll ever be, I told him. End of chapter. Chapter 25. Jake's point of view. Fire everywhere. The sky was filled with screams. What's happening? I wondered. But no words came out of my mouth. There were Niema, a lot of them. They were flying around so quickly. Some were even smashing into one another. What's going on? I tried to ask one of them. One of them, who was laying on the ground, looked up at me. He looked scared. His feathers were puffed up, and his eyes were wide. The glittering shine that most Niema have was almost completely gone from him. Please, no, he begged. He was talking to me. Are you talking to me? I asked him. But once again, there were no words. But something did happen. His pale blue feathers turned black, and he fell flat on the ground, dead. What the? I tried to yell, and move back, but my body wouldn't move, or rather, it was moving, but I wasn't in control. The screaming kept getting louder. Everything was growing more chaotic with each passing second. Without warning, my head turned, and I saw several Niema, each decorated with fine jewels and gold lace. But it was different from what I'd seen on the nobles I knew. Their gold lace was more strings wrapped around their wings, like a spider's web. They darted around me, and there was a pain in my side. I didn't even see them do it, but they must have cast a spell. I wanted to see how bad the damage was, but I wasn't in control, so there was nothing I could do. Instead, my eyes tried keeping track of the Niema that were flying around me and attacking. You beasts, just die! One of them shouted, but they were moving too quickly for me to see who it was. Before I knew what was happening, I had spun around in time to see a wall of fire consume me. It hurt, worse than anything I've ever experienced before. But my body, or whoever was in control of it, didn't seem to care. The flames died down after a second, and I saw the Niema who cast the spell, perched on a nearby building, looking satisfied. I was still writhing in pain, but after a moment it started to fade. Then the Niema's look of pride turned to terror. That's not... the Niema started to say, but as his sparkling feathers turned black, he fell quiet and dropped off his perch, dead. Stop, please stop, I begged. I wanted this nightmare to end. I didn't want to see this evil. If I had control of my body, I would have been in tears or throwing up. My body didn't listen to my begging, no matter how much I did it. It simply kept on its rampaging, never bothering to block attacks or even dodge them. It simply took them, endured the pain, and then the pain went away. It killed and killed for what felt like hours, and I was forced to watch it all happen. It didn't stop with just the Niema. It killed the animals, the plants, and even the insects on the ground. Only once the entire town and everything in it was gone did my body finally stop, and the world began to fade away. Why? Why was I? Why do this to me? I screamed. With the nightmare over, I felt like I was floating in an endless void. There was nothing to my left or my right, not up or down. There was just darkness. I wanted there to be something, anything. Normally, when this happened, he shows up. But not this time. This time, I was jerked awake, back in my mum's house, lying in bed. My eyes popped open, and I immediately rolled off to the side of the bed. I was throwing up and crying before I knew what was happening. My whole body drenched in sweat, and I couldn't stop shaking. "What was that?" I sobbed. End of chapter. Chapter 26. Suma's Point of View. The sun was beating down on us all day. We had to keep stopping to rest in the shade because it was so hot. Even high in the sky, the temperature was unbearable. The breeze while flying helped, but not so much that we could bear it for longer than an hour at a time.
If we don't pick up the pace, we won't arrive in the capital on time,
one of the Niema I was traveling with said. It was one of the lieutenants. There was 10 of us, 1 guide, 6 privates, 2 lieutenants from the other squads, and 1 captain. Among the group, only 2 of us had names, myself included. The other Niema with a name was the captain in charge of our voyage, Captain Rizoan. "If we don't rest, this heat could kill one of us," our guide said.
"Is it normally this hot near the capital?" one of the privates asked.
"No, this is strange, especially for this time of year," the guide replied. "Lady Suma, how are you holding up?" one of the privates asked. I was the only healer in the travel group, so everyone was going at my pace.
"I am well, though quite warm," I said.
We were currently in a small stream, drinking and cooling off. One of the privates used magic to create a shade by molding the ground into a small shelter. "Then we will rest a bit longer before continuing our journey," the guide said. We were all sitting in the water. It was moving, but unfortunately it was warmer than I would have liked.
"If everyone is okay with it, traveling at night would be easier."
"Is it safe to fly in this area at night?" Captain Rizoan asked.
"In this area, yes.
There are no native species here that can fly, and the dangerous ones wouldn't be active in the heat," the guide replied. "Then we shall travel at night." The captain turned to the rest of us. "Everyone get some rest. We'll be traveling tonight, so sleep while you have the chance." With that, I settled deeper into the stream and let the waters cool off my feathers. I took a moment to look out at the scenery. I'd never been this far east before, and so this entire area was new to me. It was a desolate wasteland of sand and rocks. In the entire previous day of our journey, I had not seen a single plant or animal. When I asked what this place was called, the guide told me that it was known as the Evil Sands. I watched the desert for a while. The heat made the sand shimmer and distort the area, and occasionally the winds would sweep through to cause small dust storms. But that was the extent of it. The stream itself was fairly nice, but so much that I could have fallen asleep in it. For all that, I went and rested under the shelter. Once everyone was inside, the entrance was sealed shut, and we all went to sleep. Hours later, we were awoken by the guide, who said the night had fallen. We all got up, ate, and took to the skies again. The moon was out, but it was not full tonight, so we simply kept in tight formation and made do with the little light it produced, and the glimmer of our besmears. At night, the heat was not an issue, but the cold was quickly becoming one. "Why did the weather change so drastically?" I asked the guide. "That's normal for this area, but the cold is usually worse this time of year. We seem to be having a heat wave. Be glad for that. We wouldn't be able to travel at night if the temperature were normal." "How cold does it normally get here?" one of the privates asked. "Cold enough to kill in the winter, and hot enough to turn sand into glass in the summer. This area is very dangerous. There is no vegetation to hide under or perch on, and the only way to keep warm because of it is to use fire magic all night. The heat is the reason that we must travel at night, and that same heat is the only reason the cold is not getting us," I thought. "Is that why there are no animals here?" another private asked. "There are a few species in the area. They are nocturnal in the summer, but not in the winter," the guide said.
"I have not seen any vegetation since entering the desert. What do they eat?" I asked.
"Each other." What a happy conversation this turned into, one of the lieutenants said. The night passed, and we did not stop for the rest of the journey. The sun started to rise just in time for us to see the capital of Amboss peek over the horizon. There it is, everyone, not much longer now, our guide announced. When he was said that, I remembered something important. The capital city does not have the set name. It changes with the current ruler's name. Traditionally, it would be his name first, followed by the country's name. But there have been instances in which the country's name came first. What is His Majesty's, that is, the King's name? I asked. Queen, actually. King Ompert died last year. His daughter inherited the crown. Her name is Ompera, and the capital's name has been placed before her name at her request, Captain Rizoan explained. Amboss Ompera, I thought. How large is the capital? You mentioned that you are from Zak Hashem, right, Lady Shuma? It's about twice the size of that city in terms of occupied land, and it has at least 3 times the population, the captain said. Is Zak Hashem a large city? I've never been, one of the privates wondered. It is. We even have a grand sanctum, I told him. All right, everyone, prepare to land and summon your documentation. We need to register our arrival, the guide said, and started flying towards a large dome-like building outside the walls of the city. Follow me. He dived down, and we all followed suit. The dome's top had several holes built into it, and we entered through one, landing on the ground. I noticed we were surrounded by several other Niema, some of which were mounted on very large familiars. State your business, one of the Niemas said. We are here to enter Amboss Ompera. We have our documentation here. We all summoned our individual permits and notices. Several of the Niema glanced at one another and then flew off to their familiar saddles to land in front of us. They each began examining our documents and confirming the different seals that marked them. The capital is not like any other city in Amboss. Not even nobles are allowed to enter it without permission. Only permanent residents are allowed to enter and exit with relative ease. The capital is the cultural, religious, and political center of Amboss, so its security is taken quite seriously. Your documents are in order. You may proceed, one of the Niemas said, and flew back to his familiar saddle. The guide bowed, and we all left. Who are they? One of the privates asked. Guards, another of the privates replied. Obviously, but were the city guards or something else? Neither. We will still need to present our documents to the city guards once we arrive at the walls, the guide said. But then, those were royal court marchers, the captain said. They simply determine whether you are a threat to the royals. If they had decided that we posed a threat to Her Majesty, they would have killed us, then and there. Well then, why do we still need to report to the city guards if we've already been cleared? I wondered. Their job is to not worry about the dangers we might pose in the city, only the royal family. As far as they are concerned, we could burn down all of Amboss Ompera. They would not even beat their wings to put out the flames. However, if they suspect that we are a threat to the Queen, we will die horrible deaths. The rest of the journey after that was uncomfortably quiet. I suspect the lingering threat of being killed weighed on everyone's minds after the captain's revelation. We arrived at the city without incident. I took in the sights of the city. From the top of the walls, I could see thousands of Niema below, all going about their business. The ground was filled with different types of structures. Some Niema flew through wooden buildings that greatly resembled the market district of Zak Hashem. Most of the buildings were in uniform in size and shape, with little variation. Predominantly large rectangular structures with a hole on one side. Other buildings seemed to have same essential layout, but were just made of twisted vines rather than stone. I also noticed that no one was flying higher than the walls of the city, and was later informed by the city guards that it was a crime to do so. The lieutenants led the privates to their respective responsibilities, while Captain Rizoan and I made our way to Her Majesty's castle. It was easy to see from the air. It was the tallest building by far. It looked like a tree made of interwoven stones and vines. The top bottom of the castle was even reinforced with metal beams that warped around its base like a web. It was an impressive sight, and so I decided to summon Jake and show him.
Jake, I've arrived at the capital. It is a very strange place. Do you want to see it?
I asked Jake over our private connection. There was no response. Upon realizing that he was likely asleep, I started praying to the dragons that their royals or royal court did not want to see him yet. End of chapter. Chapter 27. Suma's Point of View. The captain and I arrived at the tree-like castle. Once we were closer, I was able to see the beams that wrapped around the castle's base in greater detail. In reality, They were cages built around the only entrance, acting as a simple barrier to block large familiars from getting through. Inscribed on them were various runes. Most likely, their function would be to make a cage-like structure painful, or even deadly to come into contact with. But we were too far to tell. We landed on the dirt just outside the cage structure, and several Niema wearing red lace clips flew down from their perches on the sides of the castle. "They are the city guards. Show them respect. Answer their questions clearly and do not anger them," Captain Rozoan told me. The guards landed in front of us and immediately summoned their familiars. Under them appeared two hound-like beasts with long tusks. The beasties' bodies were long and slender. One had a dark grey fur and the other's was brown. They were very intimidating creatures. They both stared at us, their gazes never leaving our bodies for even a moment. "State your reason for business," the Niema on the brown one demanded. "I am Captain Rozoan, and this is Private Suma. Our presence was requested by Her Majesty's Royal Court." "Present your documents," the guard in the grey beast ordered. The captain and I summoned our documentation and presented them to the guards, who reviewed them for several minutes. "You may enter, but while inside you will cast no spells, rites, or rituals, unless ordered to by the Royal Court. You will not summon any familiars without proper authorization. While inside you will be escorted by members of Royal Mages. You will not attempt to leave their presence, nor will you go anywhere without their approval. Failure to follow these instructions may have fatal consequences. Do you understand?" "We do," the captain acknowledged. After hearing his instructions, I felt myself growing increasingly more nervous. "Wait here for an escort," they said, and then flew back to their perches. Their familiars stayed behind and continued to watch us until our escort arrived. A reddish-brown Niema with a Royal Mage's insignia on each of her wings, made of golden lace, landed. She told us to follow her. The cage's runes began to glow, and then we watched as the opening to the entrance twisted and reshaped itself until it was wide enough for us to fly through. The inside of the castle was impressive, a fortress taller than a citadel in my home city, and as wide as the base I've spent the last few months training in. But if the outside was a fortress, then the inside was a palace. The walls were still made of molded stone and vines, but interwoven with them were gemstones, as well as precious metals like silver and gold. Even the vines themselves were more ornate, having been dyed a variety of bright colors, mostly whites, purples, and reds. It was beautiful. We flew through the hallways of the castle and landed outside of the entrance. The court mage began to explain what would happen. "The royal court is convening inside at this moment. For some reason, Her Majesty has decided to preside over today's hearing. You will not address the Queen Emperor unless she does so first. Understood?"
"Yes, yes."
"Excellent. You have a moment before they request you. I suggest that you use that time to calm yourself or go over any information you wish to present to them." "We know what we're going to say, but thank you for the advice," the captain said. The mage nodded and turned her attention to the room before us. "Private Suma, you need to calm down."
"Is it obvious?"
I asked nervously. "Yes." "I will try to remain composed." "You know, I was in your place once," Captain Rozoan said.
"You were once questioned because your familiar is one of the only beings alive capable of utilizing the most dangerous magic our world has ever seen."
"Do not make jokes once we are being questioned."
"Yes, sir."
"What I mean is, I was once questioned by the royal court as well."
"About what, sir?"
"It does not matter. What does matter is how I got through it." He took a deep breath. "I stared at a single point, no matter what was said, or who was talking. All I did was stare at a single fixed point."
"Did that work?"
"No, they thought I was crazy."
"I do not see how that—"
"What I'm trying to say is, just treat it like a conversation between yourself and your squad captain. Do not overthink it, because that is when you will go wrong."
"They're ready for you," the mage said. Thank you, sir," I said. His advice did not make me feel any better, but it did take my mind off the situation for a moment.
We followed the mage into the room and saw dozens of Niema, all perched in a crescent moon shape, focused on a single point. That point is where we landed. We were perched on 2 golden bars wrapped in vines, whereas the royal court were perched on sloped manor, allowing me to see all of them. To the right of the moon, being guarded by 6 mages and their familiars, all of which were as strong or stronger than the drakes and black serpents, was an ornately decorated Niema. She looked to be about my age, maybe a bit younger, and her eyes were transfixed on me. "Are you Private Suma, from Court Thecoma, Isabel's domain, master of the familiar called Sentinel?" One of the members of the court, a male Niema with golden brooch on his chest, asked. "I am." "And have you been informed of the reason why you are brought here?"
"Do you wish to inquire about my familiar and the nature of his magic?"
"That is correct. However, those are not the only reasons for your appearance before us today." The court member looked around the room for a moment. "You have not summoned him yet?"
I was told not to do so without express permission by the court," I said.
Captain Rizoan was perched quietly by my side, but he was constantly looking back and forth between myself and the court member who was talking. The court member turned to the queen. "With your permission, Queen Ompera." The young queen gave a small nod. "Private Suma, you may summon your familiar called Sentinel." The mages around the queen all looked tense, their feathers puffed up, and their familiars started to show fangs, if they had them, that is. I flew to the ground and started the summoning. A magic circle formed on the ground below me.
"I summon you, Sentinel."
End of chapter. Part 28. Suma's point of view. As the magic circle faded, Jake slowly appeared. He was laying on the ground and breathing very heavily. Due to our connection, Jake has the ability to sense my desires, and sometimes even my emotions. But that is normally a one-way ability. However, there has been a few exceptions during extreme circumstances. Despite that, I've grown rather skilled in my ability to decipher how he is feeling. I could not tell why, but Jake was clearly distressed. He looked around the room and summoned his armor and one of his weapons, then once called Mori and Igus. "Suma, what's going on?" he asked. His voice was ragged, and his breathing had not yet slowed down.
"Private Suma, get control of your familiar this instant, or we will use lethal force,"
one of the guards surrounding the queen demanded. Their familiars had already encircled Her Majesty, and were in threatening postures.
"Jake, calm down. This is the capital, and these are the members of the royal court. It is time for our meeting with them. Do you remember?"
I said, trying to calm him down. "Private Suma," one of the guards yelled. Jake looked around for a moment, and then lowered his weapons. In a flash of light, they disappeared from his hands, as did the armor from his body. Sorry. I'm sorry," Jake said. He seemed shaken, the same way he did the day the Vyram attacked him. The royal mages around the queen settled their familiars, but they all kept careful watch over Jake for the rest of the meeting. The room was tense, but the questioning from the council of the royal court continued.
"We were informed that your familiar was capable of speech. It seems this was true, Private Suma. We take it that this is the familiar known as Sentinel, the one capable of chaos magic."
"He is?"
"I am," Jake said. He had not yet looked directly at the council, only glanced towards, but had not yet turned and faced them completely after walking to my side.
"Sentinel, this court has several questions for you, some of which are regarding your unique magical attribute. While answering these questions, you will be truthful, not withholding any necessary information, and you will not cast any more spells without direct permission. Do you understand?"
The court member asked. "I do," Jake said, now sounding calmer, but I could still tell that he was distressed.
"With the court's permission, I would like to take a moment to speak with my familiar," I asked. "For what purpose?"
When he arrived, he was clearly distressed. I wished to make sure that he was ready to answer the court's questions. One by one, the members of the royal court's eyes began to glow faintly.
"Agreed. You have 3 minutes,"
the court members said. I thanked the court, and Jake and I were escorted out of the room and into the corridor. With us came Captain Rizoan.
"Private Suma, what happened in there? Why did your familiar react like that?"
the captain asked. "Jake, are you okay?" I'm fine.
"Then explain your actions," the captain demanded.
I overreacted. I'm sorry.
Jake, I apologize for not alerting you before I summoned you. I did try, but I could not get into contact with you.
No, it's fine. I was asleep. I was, seeing one of Zachariah's memories.
When Jake said that, he seemed to be in pain, or extremely uneasy at the least. Was it important? I asked.
No, maybe. I don't.
Jake was cut off by the captain. I do not understand what the two of you are talking about, and do not care to. But what do I care about is this. Are you able to control yourself in the court's questions?
Yes.
Jake.
I'll be fine. Jake still looked unnerved, but I accepted it for the time being, and we re-entered the courtroom. We took our places once more, and Jake continued to stand next to me.
Are you ready to begin the questions? The court member asked.
We are, I said.
Sentinel, explain to us where you are from.
I'm from a country called England. My planet is called Earth. I was born and raised in the city of Manchester.
How long have you been the familiar of Private Suma?
Approximately 2 years. Although we met years before that, Jake spent several minutes explaining the original circumstances of our meeting, making sure to leave out my inability or unwillingness to cast any sort of mental domination rite or ritual on him.
It seems the two of you have quite the unusual history. Moving on to your abilities, we request that you demonstrate your magical attributes, specifically your death magic.
Bring out the test subject, the court member said, and a large piece of icky fruit was brought in. When he said that, I immediately felt cold, and my stomach turned. I'm sorry. My deepest apologies to the royal court, but I will not now, nor will I ever, use my death magic, Jake denied.
And why not?
The court member asked, sounding both surprised and annoyed.
Because I've seen what it can do. I never want to see it again.
We must also deny your request, one of the Queen's royal mages announced. It would mean far too great a risk for Her Majesty's safety. Ah, yes, I suppose that well-being of the Queen Emperor is something the court failed to consider. Our deepest apologies, Your Highness. The Queen nodded once, but did not speak.
Sentinel, our records indicate that your specific attribute is a rare inversion, correct?
Yes.
Then, with the Queen's permission, we would like you to demonstrate that, and we would hold the discussion of your death magic for a later date.
We are still uncomfortable with...
The guards around the Queen tried to protest once again, but they were stopped.
Hold.
The Queen, for the first time, spoke.
I, too, wish to see this ability. I grant you my permission.
The guard who protested looked annoyed, but kept silent.
Sentinel, please demonstrate to us your inversion abilities, the court member asked.
May I ask how? Jake said.
In a manner that poses no threat to the court or the Queen.
I'm afraid my experience with my attribute is lacking, Jake said, trying to sound formal. He was answering the court's questions the same way he spoke to the Major, or any other of our commanding officers. Well, I've used it in the past. I've never taken the time to experiment with all of its potential options.
You have not mastered your own attribute,
the court member sounded confused. I could understand why. To any normal mage, the mastery of your attribute was the most basic step in learning magic. Jake, however, had not taken the standard path when cultivating his abilities.
Sentinel's inversion abilities seem to take effect on other spells, rites, and rituals, not necessarily his own, I interjected.
I could summon, Jake started to say, but the royal mages did not let him finish. No, one of them said. I could invert a spell one of you cast, he said hesitantly. The royal mages looked at one another and spoke quietly amongst themselves.
Agreed.
The one that denied Jake earlier, a few flew closer. If I cast a spell that produces flame, what will happen to it? In the past, rather than a flame being hot, it'll be cold. It'll still look like a flame, though, Jake said. The mage nodded and produced a flame. Jake then shrouded the flame by himself in a small cloud of mana and kept it there. Throw it at me, Jake said, surprising the mage. After a moment, the mage nodded and launched the flame at Jake. Jake flinched but did not move, and the fire impacted his body. Once the spell dispersed, everyone saw that Jake was unharmed. Jake crossed his arms and shivered. Then a cloud of mana around him dissipated as well.
Impressive,
the mage said. When I looked back at the royal court, I saw that all their eyes were once again glowing. After the glow disappeared, the court member said,
Private Suma Sentinel, this court wishes to offer you a position working for the royal court.
May my familiar and I have a moment to talk about your offer? I quickly asked.
This court will issue your recess for a period of 1 day. We will reconvene tomorrow at noon. We await your decision.
With that, we were escorted out of the courtroom and out to the castle itself as well. "Well, that's not good," Captain Rizzoan said.
"I know. They give me the creeps," Jake said.
"You cannot accept their offer," Captain said.
"I agree, Jake. I think you did the right thing denying their request for their demonstration of death magic. After what happened with that noble, I do not blame you for never wanting to use it again."
When I said that, the pain returned to Jake's expression. "Suma, I need to tell you about the memory I saw."
"This is starting to feel like a conversation I do not want any part of. I will give you two some privacy," the captain said, and flew away.
After he did, Jake spent the next few minutes explaining the horrors he experienced in Zachariah's memory. End of chapter. With this chapter, we are caught up with current, and we'll wait for about 20 more chapters to go before we come back to it. So, look forward to that. I would quickly like to thank the T5 channel members and Patreons. Casper Arnholtz, Cam Maxwell, Lord Azrakal, It's Difficult to Pronounce, Dragzoon W.R.E, Holly's Sister, Arcadian. Thank you very much.